Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday.
Good evening.
We have Mr. Jebao. King Jebao is with us today. Oh, dear. I went into the garage before we went live and I just did a quick video of my garage SBS tray just for the intro, just so anybody knows. If you want to purchase them, then please get in touch by all means. No, yes. It was, of course, the Man's Farm himself who's joined us all the way from the Netherlands. Thanks, Leo, for joining us again. I know you're sick of me messaging you, badgering you on WhatsApp, but it's only been a couple of months since you came on to chat with us. But no, thanks ever so much for joining us tonight. It's going to be a good one, I'm sure.
Happy to be here.
Good. As long as you are, that's the main thing. Because Dong's rubbing his hands together. He's got some questions for you today, haven't you?
I'm very glad I can talk to you finally.
Yes, well, you've been wanting to meet Dong for a while on the panel, haven't you? On
the
stream. So look forward to tonight.
Yeah.
Yes. Jamie, sat there like you were ready for your school photograph. Are you well? You good?
Yes. Well, yeah, very well, mate. Yeah.
Good.
Oh, long week at work. Ready to just detoxify from all that and talk about something I actually enjoy for a change.
Okay. Well, let's do that, definitely, for tonight. Myself, Jamie, and Dong have got a series of questions for you, Leo. Don't panic too much. It's not going to be a quick fire round in the hot seat as such, but I'm sure there'll be lots of conversation coming your way shortly. But as we do every Friday night, let's just jump straight into the comments and say hello to those 50-odd of you that have joined us so far this evening. Thanks ever so much for sparing a little bit of your Friday evening to join us. We've got Fish Ventura in the house. Good evening. Hope you're good. Wouldn't be a Friday without our residents in the comments. Mr. Wright's here as well. Good evening, John Boy.
Hi, John.
Good evening.
For your support. Nick's here as well. Reef by Design. Hope you're good. Texas is with us. Evening. We've got Prime Corals in the house. What else we got in here? Lisa all the way from the US. I hope you're good. She's big fans of you two, Dong and Leo. Yeah, big fans. Here we are. Junior R. Hello. Happy Friday. Anthony's with us. Quite a few regulars. Nice to see. UK 120. Thanks for joining. Terry's here as well. Evening. You always laugh at this one, Dong. Dirty D's. There you go. On cue. Gary Neal's here as well. Evening, Gary. Oh, you're good. Peter Parry is with us. Won't be a Friday without you, man. I've just been speaking to Timothy on the blower before I came on, see if there's any questions. He's given me a few for you, Leo, so get ready for Wait for Reef's questions coming to you soon. Nice seeing the comments. Who else we got in here? Dan is here as well. Good evening. Mo's nephew, Immers, nice to see you. Amazing video that Reef Dog did on his tank the other week. If you haven't seen it, definitely go and check it out. Looking forward to seeing it in the flesh. Another regular Canadian. He keeps coming back, Dong. Bit of Canadian love. Derek Hebbs. Hope you're good. Happy Friday. Hope you're ready for tonight. It should be a good one. Harry West is with us as well. Good evening. Thanks for the repeat support. Pedro Bar. Greetings from Belgium. Oh. It's one of your neighbourly fans there, Leo, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's a good customer of mine. If it's Pedro, I think it is. So nice that you're joining us as well tonight.
Good, definitely. He'll not be on next week. He's just on because Leo's on, obviously. But thanks, Pedro. Thanks for the support. Reef Runners in the house have an awesome stream. Hit the like button. Dong will come and stare at you through your bedroom window tonight.
Ooh,
yeah. It's nearly Halloween. Reefy Reese is here as well. Good evening. Hope you're good, my man. Mo's Reef as well is here.
Hello,
Mo. Hello. Not seen Rama for a bit.
Hey.
He might be on the Tequila Rose tonight. Might not be. Maybe not. Hope you're good, mate. Matthew's here. Hello.
Hello, Matt.
Norfolk Reefer. Who else have we got in here? Have I missed anybody? Chris is here, runs Reef. Hope you're good. So is Lee. Happy Friday. Mr. Davenport. Good evening. Harry Bow. Ryan's Reef. Good evening. Julie and Paul. Hope you're good. Have a good weekend. Nick and Stacey. Hello. Intrinsic Reef. Marky Mark is here. Mr. Coates himself. Ocean Sea Products. Attack Custom Baits. That's a new one.
Wow.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Thanks for joining. Happy Friday, exactly. Haley Barr is here as well. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hope you're good. Will Schneider, happy Friday to you. Here we
From
go.
the States.
Offshore Reefer, hope you're good, my man. Long time no speak. Reef Water Drop, hello. Few new ones here. Nice to see you. Steve-O, I hope you've got the 5. Leo Dong, I don't know what you're doing tomorrow, but Steve needs some people to help him lift his new 7-foot tank into his house. So if you give up an hour of your time, I'll send you his address. Daniel Galka's in the house. Good evening, good evening, good evening.
That is a terrible, terrible avatar. Can't get on board with that.
Yeah. And I think with their abouts, if I missed anybody, as I always say, I will make a conscious effort. Oh, I have. I'm sorry. Dong, it's your biggest fan.
Hello.
Gaz's Reef. There you go. Yes. No, just kidding. That's everybody. But no, thank you ever so much for the 60 of you that have joined us this Friday night. Should be a good one. As I said a second ago, myself, Jamie and Dong have got numerous questions for Leo. But as we always do, it is a live stream. The whole point of it is to get you guys involved. So please send us any questions you've got into the live comment section. And if you don't want to talk to us, anybody in the live comment section, I mean, why would you? Then by all means, you can anonymously email them into us at thereefers@gmail.com, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can as we go through tonight's show. So, Leo, the last time we talked to you, we were talking about your new tank setup. You've done a post a few months ago about the recent, Jebao, ironically. There's a bit of a link there. Powerheads. How are they doing for you? How are they doing for you in the farm? Is this the DMP? Is it?
Yes, the DMP 60. I use the biggest model. They're doing very well. I didn't even clean them once, and they're still working very well. Never got stuck. They're still very silent. They never fell off, which is also important. Mm-hmm. So so far so good. No complaints, but I rarely have complaints about Jebao. You know that. So.
I know there's a few people in the comments that are huge Leo/Jebao fans for that reason. Like I say, you are referred to as Mr. Jebao over here. One thing that I've got to pull you on, though, one thing I noticed when I listened to the last video you uploaded, did I hear rightly, or was it probably a little bit later in the evening for me, but you said on there that you don't clean the pumps.
I never clean the motor part of the pumps. Okay. That's correct.
That's right.
I do clean, not very often, but I do clean the impeller and the impeller housing basically. But I will always try to leave the motor part in the tank, the part with the cord basically. If I want to clean it, I just brush it off a bit, but I never soak it in vinegar or citric acid or anything.
Yeah.
Same for all the magnets. I never clean any of the magnets at all. I just let them, be covered with coralline. I don't really care about that. I think as long as you don't touch it, you keep it in the tank, it cannot break or crack or start leaking or anything. So I just try not to disturb it in any way. Because this is very anecdotal, but I did notice whenever I take pumps out of the water and store them for a while in the dry, or just store them on the shelf after using them for a while, those magnets starting to swell up and crack. And I don't know if that's because I just handled them too much and I just slapped the magnets together, all that stuff that happens when you take them out of the tank. Or maybe it's because they were dry for a while and the plastic was already affected and started drying and cracking. But I just, if it works, I just try not to disturb it too much and just clean your grates, clean the impeller, and that's it.
Okay, fair enough.
Fair enough. Is that through fear of the magnets swelling then, or just you don't want to interrupt anything major?
I just don't want to interrupt it. My biggest nightmare is actually the magnets start leaking, because I have that's a downside of Jebao. They don't come super powerful, so you need 10 for every large tank. So I have more than 60-70 of those pumps in the farm, And they also come with 16 and 17 magnets. So I cannot check them on a daily basis. And I'm just very scared they will, or one of them will start leaking and swelling up and rusting. But I think my ICP will actually pick it up before it becomes an issue, because I do monthly ICPs on every system. So I think I will definitely pick it up before it starts becoming an issue. So that's my only, reassurance. But yeah.
Dong, you mentioned in the green room before we went live that you've had a few customers this week that have had experience with a few other products failing, ironically.
Oh, heaters.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's been happening there then?
I think that is they were the Amazon heaters. So for matter of fact that when the temperature dropped and this thing was sitting there for a long time, and when they kick on, and then the coral started to suffer. What happened is that I actually went to the Amazon. The two customer has identical heater from Amazon. I pull up the link. It said right on the Amazon page, it said this heater is not suitable for salt water. Yeah. So
Oh dear.
Yeah.
But was
I
it
replace my heater very frequent. So how about you?
I do basically most of the heating by the inverter air conditioner.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't
Okay.
Yeah, I just heat the whole building. But I do have some heaters in every tank, just a titanium heater on a controller, but they rarely switch on. Basically, only in the middle of the winter at night, maybe a few hours. But I always try to do it through the heat exchanger, the inverter, because it's so much cheaper.
And I mean, you've got 50 T5 units just hanging around in the farm still. So I mean,
yeah, I just replaced my bulbs this week downstairs, and there was 50 bulbs downstairs. So yeah.
Wow.
So that's also a lot of heating, for sure.
Yes.
So
definitely.
50 bulb or 50 fixtures?
50 bulbs, not 50 fixtures.
Oh, okay.
No, 50 bulbs. I have downstairs. I have 5 ATI hybrid fixtures. So 8 times. So five times 8 bulbs. And another few SunPower fixtures, also from ATI.
Yeah, the older ones. Wow, with the rubber buttons, top, left, right, and left, top, bottom, left, and right. Wow, remember those days? Yeah. Question from Mauve to you, Leo. Don't you get humidity with the aircon inverter in the room? I have an aircon inverter, but I get lots of humidity in the room.
Yeah. We do have that issue a bit, but I also have a ventilation system in the farm, and that ventilation system is controlled by temperature and humidity. So in winter, when we don't do, because air conditioning in summer takes out a lot of humidity, but in winter, when you heat it up, that's a little bit less, of course. But then we try to combat that with a little bit more ventilation, which of course also extracts heat from the building again. So it's a little bit expensive, but you won't get the whole building rusting away, basically, because that's definitely not what you want. So when the humidity goes above, I think 68% of relative humidity, the ventilation system kicks in and just extracts a little bit more air and replaces it by dry, cold air, which then gets heated up again and makes the whole atmosphere a little bit drier.
Fair enough. Big shout out to Tommy Sharon. Hope you're good. Nice seeing the chat. Thank you very much for joining us. What else have we got in here? Does Leo replace T5s quicker than Dong?
How often do you replace them?
He tries not to. He's talking to you, Dong. Leo's asking you.
Talk to me. Okay.
Yeah, he's talking to you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I replaced my T5 1.5 years.
Oh,
yes.
I do it. Yeah, I do it 9 to 12 months.
I think that 9 to 12 months the ball is still good because I measure the part. And then
So
there's somebody
Dong
else
will be
with a
asking you to.
spectrometer.
Sorry, Dong will be asking you to ship them to him now for the last 6 months.
Yeah, give me the ball.
Yeah, I think I also did par measurements. I think most of the intensity is actually burned off in the first few months, and after that it's quite stable, right? Yeah, yeah, true. I don't know. I just like the feeling of fresh bulbs once every year. I don't know what it is. It's probably they're
can
fine
still
for
get
a long
them.
time, but
Yeah, it's a bit like Jamie, bit like Jamie with fresh underpants, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Also
Yeah,
once every year or a little bit more.
You can recycle them.
Yeah.
They're okay.
The good thing is that our town has free recycling of T5 bulbs.
Oh, same for me. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All I need to do is just bring to the town.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stacks and stacks of them.
A few other people agreeing with you. I heat the room temperature of my fish room, so the heaters never have to come on.
Yeah.
Roberto, use ceramic heat exchange vent fans. Okay.
They're actually really. I've been looking into that since I went to Rob's and he showed me those. It's seems like a no-brainer. They're quite pricey units, though. I think from what you was telling me, Rob. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but they're quite pricey units. But they stop you losing all your heat through the. They basically, I think they counter current, and when they suck in the other way, they heat the air coming in. So it's
it's a heat recovery unit, basically. Yeah. Yeah, basically all the newly built houses here in the Netherlands have one of those units in the house. So all the air that gets extracted is basically heating up the air that's blown into the house again. So you won't lose any heat with ventilation. It's quite effective. Yeah.
Okay.
So according to the Google AI I have here, it says the EU is phasing out the T5 bulb this year. So they're not making any more, right?
No, they're not making any more for general usage. So for offices and that purpose. But all special applications have an exemption. So butchers use special bulbs to make the meat look better, apparently. And UV bulbs for whatever usage. And also reptile bulbs, aquarium bulbs, they all have exemptions, so they can still be produced. But, no one knows for how long that's going to be. But at least for the coming years, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to be safe. And that's also
right now, at this moment, in US, ATI actinic is all out. You cannot even find a single one.
Wow.
All right.
Yes. And then the Blue Plus is in really low inventory. And Purple Plus also very low. And then so I actually just purchased a bunch of T5 bulb.
I think that's because I bought all the stock. So.
Oh yeah, it must be you. Must be you.
Oh dear. Right, okay. As I said at the beginning, then we've got a series of questions for you, Leo. Dong, do you want to go with one of yours first? You've got anything rehearsed, or shall I throw one up on screen? What do you want to do?
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's start the grilling.
Okay, you're going to start the grilling. All right, over to you then. Bit of salt and pepper. Go on then.
So, Leo, so I watched one of your video probably a year ago, and then at that time you are using mostly T5, right?
Yes.
And then what make you to switch to some of the T5 to metal halide?
Well, I built a new show tank, and I really wanted to go back to halides for that tank. First of all, because I want the tank to have a very natural look. And I think halides still look the most natural, have the most natural effect, have the shimmer effect, but not the disco ball effect. Second of all, the spectrum is very natural one, especially when you use 14,000 Kelvin bulbs or 10,000 Kelvin bulbs. And I was just curious because I always used them in the past, but that's more than 15 years ago. And I always liked them a lot when it comes to growing corals, but also just to see the colors under them. I think the color rendering is really good. And after 15 years of not using them, but using a lot of T5s and a lot of LED fixtures, I thought it would be nice to have at least one tank with halides again. Also because it's a little bit of an oddity, I have to admit that, and I thought it would be very cool to have that show tank, which I'm also featuring on YouTube, to have that halides, because a lot of new hobbyists actually only know halides from the stories from us, from the old reefers, and never actually seen them in video or even in real life. So I just wanted to introduce them to the new hobbyists as well in this way.
Well, I was having a conversation with Dong about my display tank when you came into the green room, and it is something I've always wanted to dabble with. Whether or not I do or not, I don't know. I'm tempted. Should I do it?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Jamie? Metal halides on the DD?
Not with the UK energy price cap just going up again. Sod that.
You look like you've been sat in front of one for a few hours. You've been on the sunbed.
Under the halides.
I had a nice hot shower when I got in and just chilled out a bit, and it's just flushed me up a little bit. I'm just.
Oh dear. Anyway. Okay, right. One of ours then. Like I said to you guys watching at home, if you've got any questions, I know a few of you already have done. Please throw it in the comments, and we'll get Leo to do his best, or Dong as well. What we've got in here. So, I wanted to talk to you about something we kind of touched on: experiences with pollutants. Where did they come from? I'm on about obviously past experience, ideally, and what was your solution to deal with them? So, over to you.
I don't deal a lot with pollutants. I just talked to Dong in the green room about the pollutants. That's a funny story, but I will tell that later. I don't have a lot of pollutants, but I would always just going to find the source in a very in a very structured way. So I would always start with the source water, basically. So is my water pure? Is it clean? You can always do an ICP test on your reverse osmosis, and after that, if that's all fine, I would just start searching in the tank, in the system, and things to look for is some rusting or oxidating metals. That can be magnets, but it can also be the frame of your aquarium or anything hanging above the aquarium. And if that's all in check, then maybe something fell into the tank, a small nut or a small screw, whatever. You can try with a magnet to just go through your whole sump, or going through the gravel or the bottom of your tank, and see if anything sticks on there. Not all metals, of course, are magnetic, but at least it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And just try to exclude all those sources until you find the smoking gun, basically. But it can be it can be very hard to find, I think. And the story I have, I just started some new systems upstairs, 2 separate systems, and one of the systems showed up. My first ICP for those one system showed up with very high mercury levels. And actually, the guy from Osiamo, where I did the ICPs, was emailing me and said, "This is a very interesting result. I didn't expect this. I double checked, and it still came in very high. Do you know what can be the source?" So we were going back and forth a bit, and in the end, we came to the conclusion that it must have been the newly installed T5 lights, because that system with the high mercury just has my new light pendants with brand new T5s, and the other systems don't have any lights yet. And the rest is basically all absolutely the same water, same salt, same equipment, same pumps, whatever. So the only difference is the light that I installed on that system and not on the other system yet. So some mercury from the T5s or whatever must have been leaked into that tank and into that system, and not in the other system that's basically 2 meters away from that. So you just have to, you just have to follow. Just have to, how do you say?
Process of elimination. I think.
Process of elimination until you find the smoking gun. Okay. But it can be very difficult. Yeah.
Dong, your customers then at Acro Gardens, what sort of regular experiences do you tend to hear from customers saying, "I've got an issue with this, that, and the other"? What tends to be the common pollutant or source of the pollutant, like Leo's saying, the smoking gun?
The most common one actually for people on well water, not on the city water, is the small molecule contamination, like the small organic molecule. So the TDS does not detect those. You still get a 0 TDS, but it's a lot of organic molecule that can pass through your filter. For example, one customer lived near a small airfield here on well water. Everything checks out on the inorganic part, get TDS, 0 TDS water after the RODI, but then his coral just keep dying left and right. So eventually I asked him, did you do the annual water testing for your well required by the law? He said, no. I said, you should do it. The result came back, it filled with organic pollutants, and then the water is not even drinkable.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
That explains why he's got 3 heads, clearly.
Oh, yeah, maybe 4 eyes. Then the solution is right now he's using distilled water from supermarket. It's only a 20-gallon tank. So it's about 80 liter, less than 80 liters. So here the distilled water is 1 gallon is $1. So like 3.8 liter is $1. So for his nano tank, the 20-gallon tank, he just used distilled water. The result is so alarming. After he switched to distilled water, and he actually brought some coral back to me to trade for something else. Before that, it just withered away. So that is one major pollutant. So I do have a story for myself, a major pollutant. Okay. One day I was here working on my coral. I heard a big splash. My cat jumped into the tank. So I just turned around and grabbed the poor thing out of the tank. So that's a gigantic pollution. Water change.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Jamie, you're a bit of a water chemistry guy with work. What would you say pollutants that have you ever had to deal with anything reefing related?
I get some quirky stuff on the relation to well water, what we call in the UK as a borehole. I've done a few interesting things in and around sort of North London industrial parts. There was an old tobacco processing plant, and the ground was contaminated with all sorts of chemical contaminants, like I suppose from the tars and that sort of stuff. And that leaked a surprisingly long way from where this factory was to the source water further away. So I think there's on boreholes is always very risky. It's not just what's in the water in the hole, it's what can come in from groundwater elsewhere. In terms of reefing related, we get a few occasional things in the UK where they do, say, roadworks outside your house, and when they're replacing a bit of pipe work, they'll often shot dose that with either a high phosphate, which is a sort of a corrosion inhibitor for the pipe work, so you can get a spike in phosphate and silicates, things like that, and also heavy oxidizers like a higher chlorine dose or a chloramine, that can very rarely get through an RO unit, but can certainly kill an RO unit, which you might not pick up. That's happened fairly recently locally to me as well. A lot of roadworks going on that cause havoc. You notice it a lot more when I was in the freshwater world, because people would do direct water changes with mains water, and maybe run it through a carbon or a HMA filter, but that still wouldn't be sufficient, and you'd see people losing fish just off a water change. Whereas we've got a level of protection with an RODI. It takes most, if not all of it out, but that sort of thing can bind up your RO pretty quick. And then if you're on a set frequency of changing your membranes or your carbon filter, and that's killed it in the first week or whatever, you might carry on using it thinking it's okay, and stuff slipping through. And you've got to be careful of it. Like Dong says, it's not always detectable stuff.
Yeah.
To be fair, there was a question a second ago. I'd go back to it, who it was. It was regarding the ICPs, I think. Yeah, it was Coach. Evening, Coach. Hope you're good, man. What are the main pollutants that cannot be detected by an ICP, in your opinions? Who wants to go first?
Well, a lot of organics, of course, but some companies now offer a organic analysis, so you can basically find traces of pesticides, PFAS, all that kind of nasty stuff. So if you want to do that, also, maybe test your tap water, see what you're drinking yourself. That will be interesting. Pollen, yeah, for sure. I do have a big HEPA filter in the farm as well to basically clean the air, because I think a lot of contaminants can also just be airborne, and you just draw them in from outside into your farm or into your house or whatever. So I think a HEPA filter plus a carbon filter, which also cleans the air, is very important as well. At least on a level of farming that we do, I think it's quite important.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's so many other sorry, Jim. There's so many other things that you don't think about. Like, obviously, most people have got a tank in their living room or in their house, and again, most people probably don't live on their own, even though they probably might want to. they've got kids, or they've got wives, or they've got partners that maybe spraying things, whether it's an aerosol or cleaning equipment or all those sort of factors that you just don't get to see. The impact of that visually, well, unless you've got STN RTN, which we'll talk about in a bit, but from your corals, and it's too late. But the point I'm trying to make is that, like Coach is saying now, it's not necessarily something you can test for. I mean, Leo, I get what you're saying about the organic testing that's sort of starting to get rolled out, but the frustration I think a lot of reefers have, me especially in the past, has been you can only really test with your titration tests for so many different things. The rest of it is down to an ICP. And that's another expense in itself. You've got a delay of then sending it off and getting it back. You then question, is it accurate? Because you've heard that somebody says that they don't do it as well as they do it, and you should have gone with those, or you have to send it abroad and then it takes longer. So do you do your water change that you do every weekend, or do you leave it until you get your ICP? Do you understand what I'm saying? I just think there's so many factors in water that can have a negative, it's going to be a negative show all night, but pollutants for sure to your corals that you just have got no idea, have you?
No, that's why I love that I don't have a tank or not doing this at my house anymore, because when I was a kid, I was also aware of all these risks and factors, and I would get so upset if someone would use perfume or deodorant in the house. I would get totally freaked out and stressed out, and I have so much more peace of mind now. So
it even doesn't take a lot. So if you're working at home or whatever, and that coral's fallen over, and I'll just put my hand in and do it. If you've got a bit of aftershave on, or suntan lotion, or soap, or anything like that, it doesn't take a lot to really impact your livestock. And people don't think so. Like when I used to work in the trade, we used to have a thing. Even things like, I used to have an old boss who, if you're having your lunch and you have your sandwich and then you have an orange or something, he's like, he didn't want anyone to eat oranges or citrus fruit in the shop, because the oils on that were really, really bad.
Yeah.
Basically, my bugbear's egg sandwiches, but we'll just leave it there. Moving on. Sorry, Leah, what were you saying?
I don't have any in the farm. The only thing I clean with is soda and vinegar, and I don't have any other soap or detergents or anything. All the towels that I use in the farm are washed with soda and vinegar, not any softener, not any any soap or anything. So whenever I go with my hands in the tank, I always I always wear gloves.
Yeah.
First of all, just for protection, against scratches or whatever, but also just not to transfer anything from your hands to the tank. I think you have to be constantly aware of any contaminants happening. I think you can agree, Dong. As a coral farmer, you're always aware of all these risks. And you try to exclude them and just limit them as much as you can.
Well, there was a suggestion a second ago, Dong, for you with the cat jumping in the tank. That's why that's why dogs are better, apparently. Derek Ebb said.
Wow, if the dog jump in, well, actually, let's think about it. The dog has interceptor on her.
Yeah.
So if she jump in, oh wow.
Right. Okay.
But there is I do have one story about the pollutant. So the customer actually here for all the reefers, we have this kind of rules. You never reach your hand into somebody else's tank.
Yeah.
Yep. But once in a blue moon, there will be a guy comes in. Oh, look at that! And just reach in and grab the coral. I said, what I want to do, I want to use a hammer to smack this guy. Yeah, and then I will call the funeral service.
Definitely. There's a couple of questions coming in here. Right, okay. Let's have a look on the series of, or on the back of, pollutants before we move on to something else. I had an ICP come back today, and my iodine is nearly 200, yet corals look good. Anybody know why my corals don't seem to care?
Same, actually. Mine was 286 today. Really high.
Wow.
Yeah, well, my iodine is also always very high because I use the Tropic Marine A and K element blend, and whenever I want to get my smaller trace elements at the right level, my iodine has to be like 200 plus. But it doesn't harm the corals at all. The only thing that can happen is it can darken the corals a bit, the tissue, and in the worst case, it can fuel an algae outbreak. But there should be more factors included, high phosphates, high nitrates, etc., and not a lot of grazing, etc. So I don't think it's a big issue to have high iodine at all, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the ICP is pretty difficult. Iodine is pretty difficult for ICP to test accurately. So being a chemist, I definitely can say that. So it also depends on which ICP company you're using, and for fluoride, iodine, bromide, you cannot even use ICP to test fluoride properly. So for all this halide group, take it as a grain of salt for those numbers. Yeah,
better too high than too low. At least for the iodine, it's better if it's too high than too low, because too low is definitely not very beneficial.
Fair enough. Terry's asking, what are the top 3 pollutants that you both feel are harmful to corals and fish that are easy to resolve or not to resolve? Good question.
Ooh, I think we just talked about tin. I think tin can come out of some of the glass surfaces, especially with new tanks. And another source of tin can be plastics. And some colored silicone tubes, apparently. Some companies sell those silicone tubes with their dosing pumps, but if they have a color in them, that colorants contain a tin, could contain a tin. At least that's what my ICP guy found. So he always says only use clear or colorless silicone tubes. So I think tin could be a potential pollutant that you see on a more regular basis. Maybe some pollutants coming out of those artificial rocks or cement. I'm not sure which one those are. Maybe Dong. I think that's pretty common as well.
Yes.
Which could that be?
Yes. Actually, the many of the artificial rock is made by cement.
Yeah.
And they're using the cement in regular store. So they're not anything special. So it's filled with heavy metal pollutants.
Yeah. And aluminum as well, I think, right?
Yeah, aluminum is very commonly found, because that many of the ceramic actually is aluminum oxide.
Yeah. And I think the best remedy to combat any pollutants is a water change with a good brand salt. I think that's the cheapest. You can buy all those absorbers, and they absorb one element but not the other one, or they take out more than you actually want. Yeah. And a water change with a good brand salt can never hurt the tank, basically.
Well, I was running ironically, like one of you just said, I was running a silicate remover in my DT in the early days. Well, say early days, it's only been going to just over 2 years now. And that was aluminium oxide. And as a result of running it, I had really high aluminium levels. And I was like, what's going on here? So there's so many products that I'm sure a lot of people watching tonight have experienced this and know what I'm talking about. Obviously, you guys included, that are marketed, and we always use the M word, marketing, in a way of getting rid of a problem. But in theory, actually can create another problem that you then have to go and deal with further on down the line. Okay.
I think those aluminum-based phosphate killers are not used a lot anymore. I think most companies came to the conclusion like, okay, maybe we should, just stick with the ferric oxide and just get rid of the alumina-based. But you can still find it. I think there's still brands that just sell it. But yeah, I think
So
for
like the
big fish tanks, it's fine. Fish only tanks, of course, it's totally fine. But
I
if
remember
you have
some of the
any
old
SPF,
natural products like some of the old natural products like Miracle Mud had loads of heavy metals and bits and stuff in it. Like seriously, shitloads of stuff come out of that.
Yeah.
So you guys still use Miracle Mud?
I think it was trendy. It was trendy for a year or two.
Jamie uses it in the bath, usually with cucumber on the eyes. Back to Terry's question.
That's
then
more appropriate.
Yeah. Terry's question.
I think for Miracle Mud, it's mostly clay based, right? And clay is very good at adhesing all those heavy metals, so they're not really released into the water very easily anymore. I think when they're in the Miracle Mud, but definitely potentially they could leach back into the water if the concentration is low, right? Am I saying that right, Dom?
I think so. I read one study that done on Miracle Mud. Basically, the result saying that the Miracle Mud is not even marine based. That's the conclusion.
Don't tell me.
It's not marine based. It's from your backyard.
I've just got that scene of Ghost with Patrick Swayze.
Oh my god!
And he just throws it in the Anyway, moving on. Sorry.
But there is another mud called the Fiji mud from Warsmiths. That actually is marine based.
Yeah, that's better stuff.
Right.
But I never understand why would you add like sediment or detritus to your tank instead of removing it. But maybe I always run very clean tanks, so I never got the recreating that part of the biotope in my reef tank. I never really got it, but
So there was a story about the mud. So the reason that how the Fiji mud was marketed is that the mud was collected from a 2-mile diameter mud pool in the ocean. So since that there's a mud pool in the ocean, that puddle of mud may be beneficial to your tank. It's just something down the line. But seriously, I tried the mud is like something everywhere. When you put it in there, it's just like something hit the fan.
Yeah,
the mud is everywhere. No, they're really not much beneficial of that. I think that they're all marketing.
Yes. Okay. Can we answer Terry's question? I've had on screen for 10 minutes. What would you say are the top 3 pollutants, in your opinion, your expert opinions, that you find harmful to fish, corals and fish, and that may be easy to resolve? So what are the 3 big ones? So somebody getting an ICP, because obviously, again, we can't necessarily test for these at home. So somebody getting an ICP, what 3 things would you be like, you need to correct that now because this is going to have a significant impact on your livestock?
I think it's hard. I think it's very hard to say. Like we said, aluminum and tin can be an issue if they're really too high, for sure. But let's say copper can also be a pollutant, but it can also be a beneficial trace. So a lot of beneficial elements can become problematic if they're inside in high concentrations, like zinc, like copper. A lot of those elements, a lot of those metals can be very toxic in higher levels. So it really depends on the concentration, and there are definitely some elements that are the best in zero concentration. The lower the better. But for a lot of elements, is also that they have optimal range, which in many cases is very low, but still they have to be detectable.
Okay.
So it really depends on the concentration. So it's very hard to give a very clear answer. And I think, like we said before, the best way to resolve is a big water change. Of course, to find the source first, and then just do a series of large water changes with a trustworthy salt mix.
So the whole dilution pollution scenario.
That's still the best. After you, of course, taken out the source of the pollution or found the source of the pollution, because when it's your tap water and you're doing water changes, it's not going to help.
You've also got to factor in the different sensitivities by different corals. So some will react badly to high zinc, whereas you won't notice it on another coral.
Yeah,
So-
for sure. Yeah, for sure. Soft corals or polyps can react very differently than Acropora or for sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Emma's got a question. She's asking Leo or Donks. Me and Jamie are clearly just, we're just here for show.
Dead
Kidding.
to me, Emma. Dead to me.
I recently had a couple of corals brown out. What's up, though? You having a giggle? It's Friday night. Why not? Had a couple of corals brown out. I had some instability, in calcium. Put a straton over my tank at about the same time. Do you think par or instability was the cause?
Or both. I think when you change a lot of things at the same time, it's very hard to find the cause of a coral browning out.
There you go. On the back of that, the par was 450. Cal went from 275 to 600 plus back to 500.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. But if you change multiple times, or if you change multiple things at the same time, you're never sure what's actually the cause, and that's the biggest problem when you change too much in a short period. But I think we could say that the calcium swing is definitely not beneficial. So the best thing is to just stabilize your parameters and just keep the lights at the same level and just wait for a couple of weeks to see what happens.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, that calcium range is so big, to 275 to 600 part plus. That is way outside the range.
That's not good.
So yeah, that's no good. That's too much shocking. Too much shock to the coral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think 275 is actually worse than 600, but I think the swing is for sure not very good.
Yeah. So I found out that when my calcium dropped below 300, I did it one time only. No, the coral definitely suffer.
Yeah, that's very bad.
I experienced that not so long ago. My CO2 scrubber. People don't want to hear this again. I'll just tell you for the benefit of Leo and Dong. My CO2 scrubber, one of the feet of it actually nipped the dosing line of the calcium coming into the DT. So when I changed the media, and put it back on because of the weight of it, because it's quite a heavy unit, it literally sat on the dosing line of the calcium. So I didn't dose calcium for about 2 weeks, and my calcium was about probably about the same as Emma, 270, 280. It wasn't. It was the tank wasn't happy.
That's really bad. Yeah,
really bad.
For the benefit of everyone, then, say for example, some of us get a bit lax with testing, and then we might let it slip for a few weeks, and then we test and find something massively low or massively high. What's better for you, to react to rectify that gradually, or to go big water change, reset?
It depends.
I will do a big reset. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Ooh. Ooh.
Hey, go ahead.
You first, please.
Yeah, you do it wrong, and then I'll correct you. That's what he's saying.
Let's say if it's a pollutant, for instance, if it's copper or zinc, I will do just 100% or 2 times 75% water change. I would definitely correct it very quickly. If it's something like calcium, I would definitely take like 3, 4, 5 days to correct it. Same for temperature. If your temperature is too high, just gradually dial it back instead of just throw in a lot of ice in the sump and just get it back to optimal as soon as possible. So I think for those major elements, it's better to take a little bit more time. And for pollutants or anything that just doesn't have any shouldn't be in there in the first place, just act very quickly.
Yeah, cool. I think Elisa makes a really good point as well in the chat about having a certain coral in your tank as like that indicator species.
Yeah.
For me, I've got
canary in the mine.
Yeah, exactly that. I've got some lepto, John Deere Leptoceras all over one rock, and if the first thing starts to fall, that's the first coral that closes up. And every time I see that, I'm like, something must be wrong. And I'll use that as my indicator to go and check everything.
Yeah.
it's got that one coral they can just tell that starts to salt before everything else, and then you pick it out.
So, Leo,
Yeah.
have you tasted Dong's secret sauce?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I think in one of the previous podcasts you were. Was it? Okay, just before I say more, can you explain what it means?
Please explain, though. Please explain. What
you mean this thing?
Oh, hang on.
Oh, that'll do.
That? We can talk about it a little bit later. But for the previous question about the correcting the situation. So my philosophy, just my personal philosophy, is that if you have carbon monoxide gathering in your garage, what you want to do is just swing open the garage door and quickly correct the problem. So all you can do is, I open a little bit crack slowly. Yeah. So the reason I think about that is just my hypothesis is that the fish and coral in the ocean, they do experience a large variety of temperature swing. It can be quite dramatic. So especially fish. So fish can go from 80 degrees and dive down to high 60 and come back to 70, so that kind of thing. And coral also experience about quite a large temperature swing because during nighttime, the colder deep water, ocean water rise up with all the plankton. So they do experience like 3 Fahrenheit or something like that temperature swing, and sometimes up to 5 Fahrenheit. And I did found a research paper, saying that if you give your coral every day daily swing about 3 to 5 Fahrenheit, that may be like 3 to 4 Celsius swing, your coral actually has a stronger immune system. Yeah. So to correct temperature, for example, if my temperature dipped to 72, I will raise it back to 74, 76 immediately. So I don't do it slowly. So if my alkalinity drop below 7, I bring it back to 9 immediately. Just one shot. Yeah. Wow. I did this so many times. Well, maybe I'm playing with fire, but so far that all these buddies, they all survive my the way I handle this kind of thing. So for calcium and magnesium, I just one shot. But magnesium, I only do about 50 ppm. If I need to raise magnesium up, I only do 50 ppm a day. That partially is because the amount of magnesium I need to dump in is scary. It's just holding about 2 pounds of magnesium. Think about, oh my God, I need to do a dose about 6 pounds of this in my tank. I will do it about 2 pounds a day. Yeah, it's a lot of magnesium. That's probably why that. But for calcium, straight up to about 425 to 450. So
to just go back to that point, that valid point. Thank you for that. You're saying there. So somebody gets an ICP, somebody watching at home or watching this back, whatever, at a later date gets an ICP, and something's out of whack. Which ones should they stagger? Going back to sort of Jamie's question, as opposed to you're saying calcium, magnesium to an extent, alkalinity, you would literally flip it straight back to where it should be.
Straight back to
Okay, so which ones should people go careful with, in your opinion?
I will be careful about the alkalinity.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think potassium is another one you have to do. Not too quickly.
I heard the fluoride was one as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fluoride as well. But you will see the results of the fluoride after a couple of weeks. So you have some time to enjoy your tank before everything dies. So.
The fluoride is really scary stuff.
Yes. I listened to a podcast about that, and I couldn't believe just how little can make such a difference.
Yeah.
So I'm benefit from my magical tap water. Always 1.5 ppm.
That's what you've been washing your hair with for years, Dong. Clearly.
Actually, I lost my hair when I was really young. It's genetic.
Oh, dear.
Oh dear. Dan West is asking which ICP trace elements that come up showing low, on your report, do you ignore and do not dose, such as copper, that are traditionally feared as toxic? Yes. So I don't know, Dan, watching. Thanks for joining us. I don't know whether you're UK reef or not. Apologies if I should know, but in the UK there is quite a common conversation between reefers when it comes to ICP results, where there's this LOD, lack of detection, and certain, I suppose, opinions are that they are marketed, again, the M word, so that you go out and buy something that may not be necessary in the first place, or that may be significantly diluted, again, that you might not need to buy, or that you could mix yourself, maybe. So don't know who wants to go on that one first.
I used to ignore basically all traces,
Okay.
more or less. But nowadays I try to keep them all in check, but I don't dose a lot of individual traces. So I do dose, like I already said, the trace element blends, which basically contains the most important traces. They're all combined in 2 parts. But I wouldn't dose copper individually very quickly, I think, even when it shows up a little bit low. But I think it's a good thing that at least it's dosed every day in a small amount. It's still detectable by ICP. I think that's as accurate as you have to be for that, very, very trace elements. Although I always use ICP-MS, which I think it's a little bit more reliable than the ICP OES for those trace elements, for sure. I think you cannot really adjust your trace elements using IEP OES. I think you should just you should basically say, okay, detectable or not detectable, and that's all the info you can get out of it. So to make a long story short, I don't really dose anything individually. I dose those blends, so I know everything is added on a daily basis. Everything is detectable, roughly in range, and the only thing I dose separately is fluorine and selenium for some reason, because they still showed up really, really low, even with those blends. So I dose those individually, and basically that's it. I think you shouldn't stress too much if you just dose a blend of traces and just do some water changes every week.
Yeah,
I think you're fine in most cases. Maybe for the most special tenuis, which you want to get the 4 or 5 colors out, that's potentially in there. Maybe all traces should be, in the perfect range. But other than that, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that chase these numbers, it's kind of pointless. So a lot of those trace elements are like, some are even parts per billion, right? So we look at tiny numbers. You're never, even if you've got some present, it might not show up on a certain limit of detection test. So from my point of view, as long as I'm putting some in, I know it's there. Even if it's not detected on the ICP, I know it's going in. And the second thing I'd say, this is from my chemist background at work, is the commercial products you buy off the shelf, unless you're making it yourself, but the stuff we buy off the shelf is so dilute and there's so many factors of safety built in that you can almost drop a whole 250 ml bottle in your tank and not see any adverse effect. You're out of that 250 ml of DI water, it might be 0.1 of a gram of product.
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah.
So it's really, really small. So the view is as long as you're putting something in and you know it's going in, even if it's not detected, doesn't to say it hasn't been added and used up by something. So you just dose it for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on, Dong. You're right.
I think we all in the same opinion here. So I think that for first of all, as a chemist, I can tell you that your ICP OES, your fish grade ICP OES is not precise enough to guide your dosing of individual element. That's impossible. Because that if you want to spend $1,200 for one test of your saltwater mix, yeah, maybe you can get some sort of guidance from those tests. And I think that just like the everybody said here, is yes and no answer. Yeah, have some versus none.
Yeah.
So by this is the secret sauce. I just sometimes I drop in some every week, and that is the isolate MT, and it has about 20. It's a blend of a 20 trace element in there.
Yeah.
So and basically, if you want to use your ICP OES as a guidance to those individual elements, you are basically kidding yourself, and you're handing over money to people that telling you that you can do that, but in reality you cannot. And up to, let me give you one example. A professor in US, after he looked at how the this commercial hobby grade ICP OES is run, he said, I do not want to be a consultant. I do not want to be any part of this, because in school this is called academic dishonesty. It's that bad. Yeah, it's that bad.
Oh,
Also,
wow.
another thing is that if you're $40 with the wholesale price of $24, $25 ICP test can give you that reliable result, then I think all the pharmaceutical company will send their sample over there. Why spend $800 to $1,200 for analysis when you can do it for $50?
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, if somebody's trying to sell you 1 pound of A5 Wagyu beef for $10, you know what you get. Yep, as simple as that.
But it is so right. You do get what you pay for to an extent, don't you?
Exactly.
And this goes all the way through the hobby, even down to the gadgets and gizmos that run the tanks that we have today.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. There was a question on the back of what. Sorry, Dan. I hope that answered your question to an extent. Thanks for throwing that in there. John Wright is asking on the back of that. So John's a bit of a cynic when it comes to ICPs. Am I wrong to not do them when my corals look great to me? Good question.
No, you are not wrong. You are making the right choice.
Yeah.
Yep. Spend the money on salt.
Spend the money on salt and water changes. Yeah. And just use a trace element blend and just dose them at the recommended dosage or even lower, a little bit lower than that. Do your water changes. And
so if you are going to do that, Leo, going back to the original question around pollutants, then you're technically never going to know you've got a pollutant, but you are also technically going to constantly be diluting it if you have.
Yeah. So and I think visual checks for all your equipment and also checking your magnets if they're cracked or leaking. I think that's still the most important, much more important than doing ICPs. Just look at your corals, look if they're healthy, look if there's a change in how they look. Is the polyp extension less than they were? Is the growth reduced? And then try to find the cause, because an ICP is just a sheet of numbers, and if you don't know what to do with them, it's basically quite pointless. And if you just start adding bottles and not, you're actually not knowing what you're actually doing, and don't look at your corals, because that's the most important. I don't think it's very, it makes a lot of sense.
I do think there's certain corals though that if you look at them in a certain way, that they're not happy. Their range of, I suppose, acceptance of your water chemistry is a lot smaller than other corals. But anyway,
people use ICPs for the wrong reason most of the time, with good intentions, but the wrong reason, right? So a lot of people won't do an ICP, and they'll have a few corals looking a bit shit, and they'll go, right, something's wrong, and send an ICP off. They get their results back, and they got all these numbers, and they think, right, my manganese is low, and that must be it.
Yeah,
it doesn't tell you anything.
No.
The only reason you get value from it is if you do regular ICPs and you spot a trend change.
Yeah, correct.
And the best time I maintain to do an ICP is when your tank looks its best. That's when you do your ICP, and that's your baseline you sort of roughly aim for, right?
Yeah, and just get the first things, get proper flow, get proper nutrient export and import, get proper lighting, and then the rest is all the 1% basically.
Going back to your conversation briefly earlier, Dong, regarding temperature swings, Mickey Boy make good evening from MBM Aquarium Design. Hope you're good. Would that mean that you could swing your temperature at night for the health of the coral?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So basically, right now that my tank is about 2 to 3 Fahrenheit lower during nighttime, and that is also because of I just count all my T5 number in my mind. I have 52 T5.
I need to add some.
Yes. So
and sorry, Dong. How many halides though?
I have 0 highlight right now.
Okay.
I used to have 25 metal halide in this room.
Wow.
25, 250 watt radium 20K.
Yeah.
And during winter time, in Massachusetts winter, we get pretty cold. Then at that time, when I having all this metal halide, it reached 90 Fahrenheit in the room during daytime. I have to swing out in that winter. Outside is all white because of the snow. Then just keep blowing air out. Oh, for a matter of fact, that back to one thing that you mentioned, that you set your humidity at 68. That's very humid.
Not so much.
Huh? Yeah, because my humidity is always around less than 50.
Really?
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because I basically blow all the air out so that my ATO can replenish the Kaltwasser solution in there.
Normally it's always around 60, 65 here. And then that's basically, so if it gets more than that, it becomes a little bit more humid.
I'm sure Leo just does it for the benefit of his staff and just watches at home on CCTV. Elisa's going back to the ICP question. If the ICP test shows salinity is either high or low, would that affect the overall results, not the trace elements, but parameters like alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium? Yes.
But most companies actually incorporate that in the results. So in their optimal level, they first, it's relative to the salinity that they measured. So I think most companies do that well. So if your salinity is high, your alkalinity, your calcium, and your magnesium also should be higher accordingly, including all the traces, basically. So I think the optimal value that those companies show are related to the salinity they measured in your test.
Fair enough.
So I think it's already included.
Question sort of on the back of this from Pedro Bar, your regular customer. I have a feeling that once phosphates in my tank are bottoming out, I see lower polyp extension from the milliporas. Any thoughts on this? So, good question. Where do you go with visually being able to tell certain things are out of whack? Kind of similar to what Jamie was saying a minute ago with his Leptoceras, you said, Jamie? Something like that? Canary in the mine. So, Leo, Dong, thoughts on that? Seeing changes in corals?
So I guess what kind of phosphate level I have in all the systems right now. I just test them this morning. Guess what kind of phosphate level?
0.1.
I'm going to say saying 0.2. Sorry, Jay, I was saying 0.2.
I reckon you're going to go high. I reckon like 0.5 or something.
No.
0.4.
Wow.
Yeah. 0.4. I basically my phosphate never dropped below 0.2.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then so well, I shouldn't say never. And one time I have an anemone refugium, it does strip to the bottom.
The cat hasn't been in the tank again, has it?
Huh?
The cat hasn't been in the tank again, has it?
No, the dog maybe. No, just the interceptor.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, that definitely when the phosphate is really low, definitely affect the polyp extension.
Oh yeah.
There is, for matter of fact, that phosphate is quite important for coral growth because there's a nitrate and phosphate receptor on the skin of the coral. If the evolution have them, they do import them. They do need them. They do take them in. Yeah. So I'm a firm believer of the higher phosphate. Actually, is beneficial.
I try to keep it around 0.08 to 0.1. Definitely a little bit lower, but not very low. I think below 0.05 is something you should avoid.
Well, this is really pertinent to one of the questions I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you later on, right? So I read a lot of stuff online about Acropora coloration and polyp extension.
Yeah.
And there's one school of thought that says all of that comes from ultra low nutrient systems. Thanks, Tom. And that's how you get these high end colours and all the polyp extension, because they're searching for food all the time, and the zooxanthellae are hungry. And then there's other people that have these astonishing acro farms with 0.5 phosphate, 50, 80 ppm nitrate, and I'm thinking, what is the fucking right way?
I think it's both possible. I think the ultra low nutrient system is a little bit something of the past, but it's still used here and there. But I think that is running very low nutrients combined with feeding your corals bacterial plankton, because in many cases it's combined with some sort of zeolite system or a carbon additive system, which of course causes a lot of bacterial plankton in the water column. So you're basically feeding your corals non-stop, but at the same time the nutrients are very low. So your corals are not starving because they're absorbing this bacterial plankton and everything that you shake off those zeolite stones every day.
But you're spoon feeding them, aren't you? As opposed to
but you're really riding that edge, and as soon as the corals have a little bit less to feed on, they will actually bleach out or STM. So I think it's safer to have a little bit higher nutrients and combine that with a little bit more intense lighting to burn off, so to say, that darker coloration a little bit. That's at least how I do it. So a little bit more intense light with a little bit higher nutrients, and you still can get very intense coloration, but the corals are much more well-fed and not really on the line of starving anymore. How do you see that, Dong? Do you see it the same, or?
Yes, I see that. I totally agree with you about that. The reason is that they call in the natural ocean, there's the measurable phosphate and nitrate is extremely low.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't believe that the measurement of the phosphate and nitrate are representing the nutrient level.
Yeah.
Because that the nutrient can exist in many forms, especially many of them are carbon based that doesn't degrade to nitrate and phosphate. And also many of them are bacterial plankton, just like you said, and those are not detectable by phosphate and nitrate test kit. And what we are testing are the leftover for phosphate and nitrate after the coral consume it, or any leftover. We are testing a leftover. And also there is really not an ultra low nutrient system to begin with. So our natural reef is not an ultra low nutrient system at all. It's just that it has low phosphate and low nitrate. It doesn't mean it's low nutrient. The reef is filled with nutrient. For example, that the bacterial count in the ocean is extremely high, and that is actually serve as nutrition for coral as well. But despite that, the phosphate and nitrate is really low, and the coral have plenty of food. And there's another, there's some of the scientific publication is quite interesting. They describe how coral feed in the wild. For example, the coral sitting, assuming that's a coral. That's my potassium dosing.
Come on, get your banana out, Dong.
Yeah. Every time I bring a banana with me. So assuming the coral is sitting in a pristine water, 0 phosphate, 0 nitrate in the reef. Then a group of fish fly by. Boom. Ammonia, urea, phosphate, nitrate just ran down from the sky. Then the coral just eat. And then because in the ocean, it's like 100% water change every millisecond, right? And then the nutrient, everything will be blown away. And then the coral is sitting in the pristine condition again. And you sit there for maybe an hour, and then another group of fish come by, boom. That's called the type of feeding in the natural reef is not constantly soaking into nutrient, but being bombarded with the nutrient rain down from the sky occasionally, frequently as well. So that is those scientific studies show how actually the natural coral feeding on this kind of thing. That is why they're sitting in a pristine condition, like no phosphate, no nitrate, but they still get enough nutrition because somebody walk by and toss you a bunch of hamburger.
So the way that's been explained to me in the past is that although there's very, very minimal levels of nitrate and phosphate in the ocean, minuscule levels, there's a constant supply of it. So there's a lot of
it's unlimited supply of it. Yeah.
But how does that? So let's take it back to reefing and customer versus seller. If I'm out there buying corals and I run an ultra low nutrient system and my corals are popping, and I come to your farm and you run a high nutrient system and your corals are popping, if I buy from you and put into mine, they turn shit. They look horrible for a while. Like,
actually, it's the opposite.
Will they revert back, or will they change back? Was there a lag, or is there an adaptation phase, or is it just are your corals colourful because of your conditions, and in my tank they won't be colourful, or how does that work for a seller and a buyer?
So, Leo, how about you? Let's listen to your opinion.
Well, I think, nutrients and light intensity are always the biggest variables when it comes to color coloration and the change from our systems to a customer systems. So we run, I think, mediocre phosphate levels and quite low nitrate levels. So if they are moved to another tank with lower nutrients, I would always suggest using less intense light, or at least start at the bottom of the tank with the frags and just move them up gradually over the weeks and see how they respond, because different nutrient level have effect on the sensitivity to light, and you can bring the colors out with more or less light depending on your nutrient level. So it's always a good idea to place them on a frag rack and see how to respond in your system. And if you see, they're becoming a little bit too bright, a little bit too light, just move that coral rack a little bit down. And if you see them brown out a bit, just move that frag rack a little bit up, or lower your nutrients. Of course, you can also do different stuff, but your other corals are probably used to that environment already, so it's better to not go that route. But yeah, that's why I always suggest to put the corals on a frag rack and let them adjust to the light and the nutrient levels in that particular tank in this way.
If anybody would like to make an offer of how much they would pay for Dong's signed banana at auction, please put that in the comments and we will raffle it off on next week's stream. One of the other questions that we wanted to throw up for you two gentlemen this evening was regarding feeding. And I think I kind of know your opinions on this, both of your individual opinions, but just to discuss it again with the audience and people watching at home. So supplemental feeding, is it needed? Is it beneficial? If so, what is beneficial and why? And this kind of maybe includes a bit of your secret sauce, Dong, maybe. Who knows?
Leo, please.
Yeah, I'm I think bad for all the manufacturers of products for reefing, because I think most products are just a money grab. And I totally think all those coral foods are definitely not necessary in most cases. Let me explain why. I think the best coral food is fish poo, period. And I think you should first try to feed your whole system through feeding the fish. And I think you have to give your fish high quality dry foods, high quality frozen foods, the highest quality that you can get. So not a lot of fillers, not a lot of wheat, not a lot of grains in your dry foods. And try to, get the nutrient levels in range by just feeding the fish. I think that should be enough. Let's say if you have a very small tank and you cannot have a lot of fish in that tank, or you cannot have any fish, only a few small gobies or shrimp or whatever. In that case, I think, some specific coral foods could be beneficial. The same goes for our systems. We have a lot of corals, fast-growing colonies, and we just cannot add enough fish to keep up with the nutrients. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes we need to add some extra powdered food or liquid foods to just keep those phosphates and nitrates up a bit. But I think in many cases, it's definitely not needed, especially when you just have a bunch of fish that are well fed. So you can better invest your money in good quality food instead of all that fluorescent amino acids.
There's a point there from Prime Corals for feeding them. For me, feeding them is essential because I have no fish.
Yeah, in that case, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes,
think, yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's why I
Go on, Dom.
constantly looking for new fish. I try to pack my system as much fish as possible. So
Yeah.
last time I count, I probably have over 100 fish, all different kind of thing. So that's why I feed them 3 times a day. That big bags last week, several months, and that's it. The 2 kilos all go in there. So
Yeah.
feed them 3 times a day. Try to encourage them to go to bathroom. So without using any diarrhea medicine. So the more they go, the better. So I can see them, especially the large tang and large fox face. They just like bombers.
Yeah,
Just like
great.
crop duster. And then yeah, okay, wow, that's good. Now I have more. So I always wondering that if the Acropora actually can eat those powder food at all. I always wondering that. So yeah, what's your opinion, Leo? I think that you probably like rib roy. Maybe do you think that the particle size of them is too big for SPS like Acropora?
I think you mentioned the spectrum food once before. I actually use that as well. The spectrum.
Oh, the reef cell. Yeah.
I think
that
that's
makes like a milk.
Yeah, it makes a lot of milk. I think that's very fine. And what I actually do is I prefer to feed frozen food also when it comes to more fine food. So I have frozen cubes of fish eggs, which is basically also invisibly small. You also have bigger fish eggs, but the fish eggs that I have is basically also like a fluid. So I also dose that, and I never rinse my frozen foods.
Yeah,
I use frozen foods of high quality, which are not, don't contain any additives. So I can just defrost it and just toss it in with all the liquid that comes with it. And I think it also contains a lot of small particles and grind it up myces, etc. So that's what I try to do. Other than that, I do the Nutri-Cell once in a while when the nutrients are a little bit low. And I have the Fauna Marin Coral Sprint because the funny thing about that is it contains a lot of, for some reason, contains a lot of nitrogen and not a lot of phosphates. So if my nitrogen is a little bit low, but my phosphates are in range, I try to dose that. So yeah, that's some stuff you find out over time. But I try to stick to mostly frozen foods, to be honest. So even for the fish, I try to feed mostly frozen food. Yeah.
So I make my own frozen food. Because I'm also a vendor. So after here's a story. Actually, probably only happened in US. I'm going to piss off a lot of local fish store owner. So what happened is that many years ago, when I get my license, the business license, I heard that frozen food makes a lot of money, profitable. So I call up the wholesaler in West Coast because they're most of them are over there, and they quote me at $200 a box that I can probably make at least $200 out of that. And then they quote me a shipping cost, $150 overnight under dry ice. I said, then my profit just evaporated in front of my eye. Then I said, well, then they tell me, do you know that you can ship it UPS ground or FedEx ground if you desire? I said, well, that takes 5 days. If it all sold out. And they tell me that, oh, do you know that many local fish stores actually doing that way? They just put them in the freezer, freeze it back, and sell to the customers. Oh my God.
Wow, really?
Yes. Okay. Then I do a social experiment. Okay. Of course, I'm not going to walk into a local fish store because they all know me. So I send people, go buy fish from this, and come back. Let's all look at it. So one example is that the food, actually quite a bit of frozen food already show signs of melted and frozen again. Because one pack, the blister pack, the aluminum foil is even separated from the plastic tray. And inside supposed to be those white PE mices is grayish mush. It's that bad. Okay. And then I did another social experiment. I sent people go to Petco to buy frozen food. Guess what? The Petco's frozen food is pristine, high quality.
Yeah.
The reason for that is that the Petco's manager doesn't even care to save any money because his job is follow the corporate protocol.
Yeah. And they probably they ship in bulk, so they have a lot of stuff.
They ship in bulk and they ship properly. Because that the Petco's department manager for the fish department, the profit, the money is not linked to their own pocket. That makes a big difference. And then that's why I found out that if I make my own, use raw salmon, raw shrimp, if I feel happy, I toss in some scallop. They're expensive. So I just So I bought a dedicated blender from Amazon because if I use my wife's blender, I'm going to sleep in the garage. So to prevent that to happen, I bought a $20 blender and blend them into pulp without adding any water. Then I scoop this pulp when nobody's home. So because it's quite disgusting,
it's
into
smelly.
Ziploc bag and then pat them flat and put in a freezer. For matter of fact, that when my daughter, younger daughter, still lived at home, I was forced to buy my own little freezer because it's so disgusting to find that thing in the freezer section. So, and for, after I freeze those blended salmon and shrimp, it's so easy to just break apart, break a chunk and toss in the tank and done. Then you have the highest quality, human grade quality.
And it's not. That's easier said than done, though, because I've done exactly what you said with salmon.
It's easy. What happened?
No, it's easy to do it, but the fish.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
I think some fish they get used to a habit, don't they? They get used to certain size particulate of food, and when you do that, they're very confused. And before you know it, it's straight through the rest of your system, skimmer, whatever, filter floss, and turning into nutrients or whatever else.
Your coral get the fair share in that case.
No, I get it. The concept is great. I've done it before, and I think I did it too fine. I think it was too much of a pulp. And what I'm saying is I've got certain fish that they expect a certain size particulate, and when it isn't presented, and it's more of a coral food, like a dust almost.
What you could try, what you could try to do is adding some the seaweed gelatin, the agar stuff, and then
that's right.
all the stuff is basically contained into a gel, and then it won't pollute your tank that much, and fish can just eat it before it all becomes a liquid or powder. So that can help. It can help contain. I think even the Spectrum brand, they even sell that gelatin stuff as well to make your own coral food.
Yes, actually, we can buy the gelatin here to make your own fish food, mostly for freshwater hobby.
Yeah.
So they're called the superfood, and basically you get the bone meal and then add the gelatin there and make your own high energy, high for your discus or your Oscars.
Yeah, it's basically the same stuff. So that can help contain the pollution a little bit. Yeah.
One thing I don't do is a lot of people get all their frozen blister packs, their cubes, whatever, defrost it, and then pour it through a sieve and rinse it. I don't. I put the whole thing in. I put all the solution.
No, I don't.
The liquid in.
All right.
Yeah, that's probably
I need that phosphate. I need all that liquid stuff to go in because my tanks they run pretty clean. So I don't rinse any of my frozen food. I just chuck it all. The whole lot goes in.
By the way, anybody microwave your frozen food before you put it in?
No.
Oh, you never because that was something that people here they do. They say, oh yeah, microwave my frozen food for 5 seconds to kill off the bacteria.
Oh yeah, sorry, I have heard that.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Microwave is not radiation. It's not nuclear radiation. So microwave just heat up the thing.
Yeah, there are a lot of very vulnerable omega-3s in there, a lot of fatty acids, and if you heat those up, they will be partially destroyed. So I think it's not
exactly.
And you cannot kill bacteria. You have to autoclave it for 20 minutes. Maybe then it's sterile. But
exactly.
We've got a popular brand of frozen food over here that's supposedly gamma irradiated, which
that can help. But you know.
Yep.
You turn into the Incredible Hulk. There's a question here in the comments from Jay. What is an acceptable nitrate level for SPSs by everybody's standards?
Well, I think that's my unpopular opinion. I think nitrates are completely useless for Acropora, to be honest. I don't think you need any nitrates present in your water, which doesn't mean you have to starve your tank of any nitrogen. But our nitrates are typically below 1 ppm, which basically means I add a lot every day, but everything is used up. So I don't have any leftover nitrate in my tank.
So again, back to the testing conversation, you would only be testing for what isn't being used.
Yeah.
Leftover.
Exactly. Yep. So I think a higher level would be acceptable for sure, especially in a mixed reef when you have more LPS or softies because they like a little bit more excess nitrates. But I think for SPF or Acropora, it doesn't really matter as long as you don't starve your corals of any nitrogen or phosphates. So, but I think even like 20 or 30 ppm is totally fine for acros. It just means you probably have to give them a little bit more intense light to get the same colors out. I think that's the only difference. And I think there's some research that very high nitrate levels can reduce growth on Acropora, but I think that's actually, it's like 30, 40 ppm plus.
Is some nitrate not beneficial for the zooxanthellae though?
Oh, they're very beneficial for zooxanthellae. That's why the corals tend to brown out a little bit more with higher nitrates. But more zooxanthellae is not always better.
Yeah.
You know, there's a point there's basically enough, and more zooxanthellae is not always means healthier or better growth or whatever. So, what levels do you run, Dong, in your systems?
Actually, I did one experiment, 0 nitrate for 6 months. For the SPS, it doesn't make any difference at all. But my torch and hammer definitely doesn't look as happy. So you're absolutely correct about that. The more zoans, more symbiosis algae in there is not better, because there is a reason for that. So from scientific literature, so basically the photosynthesis of your symbiosis algae produce the oxidative species. So actually coral need to control the population of symbiosis algae in there. The coral does not want too much activity because it damages the cell, because the byproduct. So that's why you can see coral actually eject the symbiosis algae when needed. So when you have a very high nitrate, you're promoting the zooxanthellae to grow, and sometimes can be out of control and more than the coral needs. So so I normally keep them right now is about 2 ppm, 2 to 5 ppm, and by this.
Yeah.
Because
I've just tried to push mine up to greater than 10 because I've had to dose nitrate and it's ridiculous. But one thing I would say on that is we're talking about, again, reef keeping, ornamentals, and a brown coral doesn't mean it's an unhealthy coral, right? A brown coral is a very, very healthy coral. So just because we as acros want a lovely pink tenuous, that very same species but in brown colour form doesn't mean it's less healthy. It's probably more healthy than the pink one we want. We just want it to look nice because we're selfish and it's there as an ornament. It's a beautiful thing. But brown coral is a healthy coral. It's just we're trying to starve it to a point to look nice for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to, blast it with light, certain spectrum to, protect itself from the light, and then bring out the colors by reducing the zooxanthellae a little bit. Yeah, that's for sure. But I think coral growth is always a good indicator of health as well.
Yes.
And there's definitely a sweet spot when it comes to nitrates. So too high nitrates are definitely not better for the coral than in that optimum range.
What's your opinions on reducing nitrates then? Which always seems to be difficult for people to do compared to phosphates, because there seems to be more products out there.
I think nitrates are easier than phosphates because phosphates tend to accumulate and store in your rocks and everything. They have more of a buffer effect, and nitrates don't have that buffer effect. So I think a water change is very effective for nitrates. And a little bit more export by skimming, a little bit more, skimming heavier, skimming wetter, using more mechanical filtration like a fleece filter or filter socks. So I think it's pretty easy to reduce nitrates, or just feed less, that's always an option. I think phosphates is a little bit more indirect, because when you lower phosphates in your water column, the next day they bounce back to the same levels because it just buffers back. So and then at some point they drop very quickly because your buffers are empty. So you have to be very careful. And nitrates is pretty much straightforward to reduce it. To answer the question of Jay, I think acceptable is anything below 30, I guess.
Oh, that's a fair range, definitely. Okay, perfect. There was a question that me and Jamie put together for you. I think it was one of yours, Jay. Stopping and preventing STN, RTN, if you could. If you had a magic wand, what steps would you advise? Look at Leo's face. If
it's
only
a massive
you knew.
Topic. It's a huge topic, right?
If I wish,
So where I was going with this question is obviously I think the general consensus is we agree it's a bacterial issue for the most part.
Yeah.
But for example, when I've had it in the past, when I've had like an STN frag in my system, I will cut the tips off and I'll refrag those, and they'll be absolutely fine. And I'll lose the original stump, that'll all go. But the ones I fragged, I'll recover and I'll grow back again. So maybe it isn't as bacterial as I'm thinking it is, because they're in the same water column in the same. What's the process behind it? How do we prevent it?
I think it also has to do in many cases with the internal the bacteria in their microbiome that are out of whack because of whatever reason. Can be trace elements, phosphate swings, or whatever. I think it's not 100% cleared up yet, but I think the microbiome is a very important thing and actually can cause STN if that microbiome is out of whack, or some species in that microbiome become more prevalent compared to others, and that balance is disturbed for some reason. I think the only thing you can do is try to frag off the healthy parts. What I also do is always remove the part that's actually STNing. I'm not sure if it's contagious or can spread to other colonies. I never see any proof of that, but anything that looks sick or not doing well, I try to isolate. I try to take out immediately. Frag off some branches, and in many cases, for me, even the branches of healthy parts of a colony that's STNing, they won't make it in the end. So there's something off in that colony, and it's basically spread through the whole colony, or the whole colony is affected in some way. But I also accept it as a part of reality that in a farm with thousands of frags and corals, you always have one or two pieces every day that just bleaches out for whatever reason, or I mean STNing for whatever reason, because I don't know, when everything is thriving, you still have some frags that are STNing, so it's just well, it's very hard to pinpoint.
That kind of nicely brings me on to one of my questions was to you both, was regarding Australian corals. So I've had a few in my display tank downstairs that have done great for nearly a year, and then randomly just just STN, you know. But everything else, meanwhile, everything else in the tank is doing fine, you know. And I've had another issue with one fairly recently, and I couldn't tell you if there was a trigger or if there was a spike in anything, because I've not seen anything from testing water, because naturally that's what you do straight away. You've got this sort of programmed, you know, inhibit sort of, I suppose, habit to go, oh, what's wrong with the water. Is it fair to say that certain corals just aren't going to get on in certain parameters, Dong, Leo, than others?
So for mixed reef, normally that what I find out that from my customers throughout the years, for people who keep a mixed reef, when Acropora STN, many times it has something to do with they have Garnipora in their tank.
Yeah.
So Garnipora is known to actually release toxin into the water for basically for fighting for living space. So chemical warfare, and also about gigantic ladders, and that those can also excrete chemical into the water column, suppress the other corals' growth, and normally Acropora become the first victim because that they just have no defense mechanism. For example, that you do not see in the ocean that a big giant Garnipora grow next to Acropora. Basically, Acropora is pretty foreign to the Garnipora, vice versa. They're not right next in the same region of the ocean. So I found out Acropora actually has very little defense against bacterial or the toxin released by other coral. So that's why I keep all this tank. Well, for Acropora, mostly it's Acropora, and then I separate LPS, especially Garni, to a separate tank to reduce this kind of effect. Just like Leo said, that when you have a lot of coral, oh my goodness, that's wow. So
he's gonna throw him in the tank next. Just so
that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Make sure you have the interceptor on the dog first.
Yes.
So when you have many coral, one or two kick the bucket, that's pretty normal. And I think that one thing for hobbyists at home is that if you have 100 coral, one or two kick the bucket or have any signs of not happy, it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't worry too much about it, and don't suddenly change everything just for one or two coral that's not happy.
To be fair to Neil, offshore reef, he was saying, you know, is it about us corals because they come from such a clean environment? Because obviously we're aware that they come from, you know, they're used to, I suppose, lower nutrient levels, high flow. Maybe it is something that I've done in the DT downstairs. I mean, the display tank downstairs is running about 0.1 phosphate at the minute, 0.12. So I suppose, well, compared to Dong, nothing. Borderline a little bit too high, maybe. But that coral's been in there and it's gone through so many swings. It's gone through salinity swing, calcium swing that I talked about a minute ago with the dosing line, temperature swing, because I run my tank a little bit warmer anyway. Been fine. Or has it? And it's just slowly said, enough's enough. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, I try to stay away from most Australian species for any new additions. I just try to stick to Indonesian species now because I have the same experience.
Really?
Yeah, over really long term farming, I don't have a lot of luck with Australian species, except for a few exceptions. Shortcakes tend to do well for some reason, but let's say spatulatas or anything, they can be very pretty for a couple of years, but long term, they never make it. Let's say on a 5 year range, it's basically 100% fatal. So what the reason is, I have no idea. Maybe it could be same in the microbiome, blending them with Indonesian species. Maybe that's long term, that's just not compatible. Maybe they're of course collected from very pristine parts of the reef, offshore reefs in most cases, with very constant factors compared to Indonesian species, which are used to much more fluctuations. in many cases, and they're also farmed in many cases for a long time.
Yeah.
They're selected to be farmed, and the corals that were taken from Australia, they're basically just cut from the wild. They were never farmed before. They were not selected on their hardiness or fast growing. And of course, those Indonesian farmers are very smart, and they just farm the species that do very well and not STN very easily. So
basically, I did okay to keep it as long as I have, is what you're trying to say to me politely.
Yeah, I think so. Another, I think, a theory could be that if they're, for sure, keep them separately from Indonesian species, but no one's going to do that. Second of all, try to keep them with a little bit lower alkalinity, especially in the beginning. I heard some importers keep them actually at alkalinity 6.5, which is quite low, but very closer to natural sea levels, actually. 6.8.
Yeah.
And if you put them in a system with DKH 8, it's not going to end very well. So it could also be a reason, because we tend to keep our alkalinity above 7.5 in many cases, or around 7.5. Those Australian species in particular don't really like that. But that's all guesswork, basically.
Well, incidentally, I had 4 pieces that I got at the same time from the same shipment. And I had one that it was probably one of the best corals I've ever grown out. And it was based out, absolutely amazing. That went. Then I've had this one go. So I'm down to 2 left. And I've had no other issue with any other coral in the tank, just the Australian ones. And it's different times of the year now. We're obviously getting into a cooler climate. So I didn't really think the temperature is going to be an issue. Done an ICP. There's nothing that looks untoward in there. Just maybe the coral isn't happy with the conditions because of where its natural habitat, as I've kind of put on that question to you. But
the other thing I'll throw in there is what me and Tom spoke about yesterday on this very topic, because I've been working a little bit and talking to Paul at AAC about this, and he's very keen about temperature could play a role. So it's interesting how you mentioned shortcakes, because obviously shortcakes are from the reef crest, right? The highest point of the reef, highest exposure, all that sort of stuff. So could it be that, I mean, there are times when the neap tides are out, I mean, they're exposed to daylight and stuff, right? So could it be that they do require a higher temperature to thrive, and where our tanks are around 25, 26, they want it 27, 28, and that's made a difference?
Yeah, it could be, for sure. It's just, I think it's very hard to really find the cause for sure, but it definitely has to do with the adaptability to our tanks. That I think that's for sure.
Definitely.
Elise
is ready for another banana joke, Dong.
Actually, before the banana joke, I think now I have a little pest theory about the Australian coral.
Go for it.
So just like you said, that the light strawberry shortcake. So I've seen strawberry shortcake. That's right now I do not get any wild coral. All my coral is from the old school hobbyist for years now. But before that, I do buy from wholesaler. I actually I keep a log of Australian coral I purchased for 10 years. The mother colony survival rate for 10 years of purchase is absolutely zero. Yep. Absolutely zero. But
really?
I keep them, yes. I keep them long I keep them long enough, they shoot out new branch.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got growth. I've got growth, and they're based out. And you look at the coral, you wouldn't think I'd had it 5.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd have it years.
And then
all
as soon as they grow out, cut.
Right.
And then eventually the mother, the original piece, will just suddenly die. And some of the strawberry shortcake is peeling away. The fresh is peeling away from skeleton with full polyp extension.
Yeah.
Well, the one that I mentioned a second ago, which was honestly the best acro I've ever owned and grown out. It was so fluffy. I kept cutting it with my bandsaw, putting it back in the tank, and the polyps were out, but it was stripping. The polyps were out, it was stripping. And I was like, why? If it's stressed, you would not expect the coral to look technically so happy, but it just did, and that was probably the most painful coral
exactly.
ever.
Yeah.
Ever.
And so my theory is that, first of all, for Australian coral, we maybe underestimate the light they need. Because we have seen so many YouTube, like Magna Conference and the gurus, the big giant figures of this hobby were talking about the upper limit of the part. But sometimes that I think that I do look up all this literature they cited. Okay, I'm in a habit because I'm a scientist, so I like to dig into. I like to read pattern. I like to read paper. So all this paper being cited for this hobby, not for this hobby, about the upper limit of the par level, are basically done on like a Poritis, Pavona, and not many of them actually done on Acropora. So different species of coral, like stony coral, the light tolerance or the requirement of the lighting can be dramatically varied. So you have seen people that zap their Walt Disney under 700 par, and then then the people say, "Oh my God, that is already in the zone of photo inhibition." Probably it's not. Maybe in the zone of the photo inhibition for your Poritis. It's not for the Acropora. So another thing that my hypothesis also actually that some of the literature also hint for that is that there's about 40 something different types of photosynthesis algae, and coral actually selectively harbor the type of algae. So for coral, like Australian coral, when they're exposed to extremely high par, so they will harbor those algae that is less efficient, because that the more efficient algae, the more photosynthesis activity produce the oxygenated, the oxygen radical.
Yeah.
So they will house those algae that is mediocre. But they also feed on plankton in the ocean to fulfill their nutrition needs. When we bought the Australian acro into our tank, we do not have that much of live plankton to feed them. The photosynthesis become the primary source of their livelihood. But then they're hosting all the algae are mediocre. So, of course, the coral is demonstrated to be able to swap out the algae when they adjust the environment, but it takes time. It also depends on if you have the more effective and more efficient algae available in the water column for them to swap. That's why the Australian coral basically starving themselves to death. So when they starve, what they do? Polyp extension. They try that all the effort, try to capture something to feed, but they cannot. They don't get enough. You don't have enough light. They have a mediocre photosynthesis algae. You do not have enough plankton for them to eat on. So they basically slowly starve to death. But the tips, the new grow tips that grow in your tank, grow in our tank, they probably adapt much better. Maybe they have the different algae swap in. They're more suitable for photosynthesis, use photosynthesis as their primary driving force. So those tips live. But if you don't cut those tips off the mother colony, when the mother colony die, they take the new growth with them.
Sorry, Tom. You're validating a theory I've held for a long time, and Derek Kebs in the comments has just made a comment about fragging more often. I've always thought,
frag.
If we're talking, so fragging is our equivalent of nature in the tank, in a way that how I see this when I've been diving and stuff is that there is not a day goes by on the reef where a colony of acro or stony coral isn't nipped, branches lost to parrotfish, triggerfish, always taking bits off, always ripping it apart, storm damage, all the rest of it. The corals in our tank don't see any of that. They just grow and grow and grow nicely. So there's probably some of these unnatural shapes and forms that we see. Do they react better to triggerfish or us fragging them regularly and keeping that process going of new growth and continuous replenishment? Is that better for the coral?
I think fragging is good for the coral because that you also separate the new growth, the new shoots from the coral from the old mother colony. Because the mother colony is, well, it probably is going to die from my statistic, for 10 years of waste, well, it's not wasting money, but 10
Good
years
point,
of
from Ellie
heartbroken.
Spartan, Dong there. Most of the wild Acroporas Australian are harvested from offshore hardline reefs, which is hugely different environment from the Indonesian mariculture beds. Thanks, Ellis.
Yeah, definitely.
Just in case you wanted to see what it looked like, Dong. Sorry to keep putting in. That's what it looked like. It was nice.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, wow.
It was very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have that as a memento. Never mind. Nearly a year. Nearly a year's growth.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dong.
Yeah, and also fragging coral actually stimulate themselves to grow as well. Every time you cut it, and then the coral, biologically is just a kick in high gear. It's just like healing, reproduce. Yeah, you basically just give it just like cutting your flower.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also try to a lot of.
Sorry, Leo. I mean, that's what I was getting at. Do corals need that regular clipping and fragging and breaking to keep that level of hardiness, that level of replenishment, and all that sort of stuff?
Can I also just interject though and say that do you also need to make sure that certain things, i.e., your water, at certain parameters levels before you do start fragging? Because I've had corals in my early days where I've fragged, and as a result of fragging, they're no longer available to frag. Just saying.
Oh, I actually frag them when they're healthy.
That's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, if you see the coral already stressed out and you try to save it to frag it, most likely to lose everything.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I always
another thing is go ahead.
With colonies that tend to grow very compact, I also try to open them up a bit, just by cutting off the center of the coral to let flow go through a little bit easier. It also can prevent any issues in the future when the colony gets bigger. So that's also a reason I keep fragging the colonies in many cases, just to open up the colony a bit.
Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things I remember from your podcast with, I think it was the one we did recently with Felix. Thank you. Yeah. For those of you watching that don't know, Felix is Moonfruit on YouTube.
Moonfruit,
great
777.
channel. Yeah, that's the one. Great channel. Nice guy as well. Like I said, I met him at the TMC Reef Summit early in the year. You don't keep big colonies on purpose, is that right? So you
not anymore.
From a flow perspective and the detritus and I'm assuming the financial risk of losing the coral as well and having to replace it, you keep smaller pieces.
Yeah, instead of one big colony, you can still see it actually in the beginning of the podcast that Felix shot a video a couple of years ago, and he basically came every year. And in the video he shot the first time, you can still see the 30, 40, 50 centimeter colonies. But since that time, I totally got rid of those by just fragging them up in smaller colonies. So instead of one big one or two big ones, I now have 5 or 6 smaller ones, because it's just so much easier to get the flow inside the colony. If one colony STNs, in many cases it's completely gone. If you have 5 or 6 smaller colonies divided in different systems, you spread the risk of losing a species completely. And it just saves a lot of hassle with checking all the colonies. Is there any detritus in the middle accumulating? Is the inner part still getting enough flow? So it's much easier visually to inspect them when you have smaller colonies. So it took a while, but actually it's a no-brainer because large colonies that looks very nice, of course, and people think when they think of a coral farm, they think of huge colonies. But we actually completely stopped doing that. So if a colony tends to get too large, we actually split it in 2 or split it in separate parts and just start over.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. That's exactly what I do.
Every real farmer at some point discovers that, I think. That it's just easier to grow acros in smaller colonies and just let a colony grow huge. Yeah.
And also easier to harvest those tips in perfect shape. Yeah, when you get an ugly big one, the middle is kind of messed up.
You cannot do anything with the middle,
Exactly. Sometimes it doesn't fit through the frag saw.
Yeah.
We just can't replicate natural flow, no matter how many power heads you have. Like Your 50,
No, you cannot.
Your 52 hours, you can't do the natural flow. So
No, it's impossible.
You've got to keep it manageable, haven't you? You've got to do that.
Yeah.
Well, funny you should say flow, Jamie, because one of the things again I picked up on Leo's last chat or your last update on your channel, Leo, was gyre flow versus chaotic flow. What's all that about? Talk to us about that for a second.
That's a good one.
Well, I think you need different types of flow in your tank. So first of all, you need a gyre to basically move all the detritus to the overflow. I think that's one important aspect of flow, is just to export the nutrients into your skimmer or your fleece filter or your filter socks or whatever. So that's the first thing. And that's basically circular motion in the tank that you can achieve by not too many pumps that are just blowing constantly from one side to the other and then the way back, basically. Then, of course, because corals cannot be hit with flow from one side all the time, because there will be a shadow side, so to say, which doesn't get a lot of flow. So you need more power heads that create flow that comes from different directions and has different intensities. So you can hit a coral with very strong flow constantly from one side, but it wouldn't be very happy. But if you hit it from one side for a couple of seconds and then hit it from a different side a couple of seconds, even when the flow is very, very strong, it will actually tolerate that, because the flow comes from a different side constantly, and certain parts of the colony gets a little bit of rest in between. Second of all, you get the flow in every part of the colony when it's randomized and comes from different sides. So you're making sure the coral gets a lot of flow, but won't be very stressed because it doesn't come from one side all the time. And you make sure the flow gets in every part of the colony, basically. So that's the reason chaotic flow is very important. And then third of all, I also distinguished a wave pattern. So it is possible to have a gyre, chaotic flow, and a wave pattern in your tank, because that wave pattern basically moves the whole water column up and down. And that water, even in between the rocks and in between all the branches of the colony, will start moving up and down. And when it moves up and down, it's also more likely that it gets swept away with other types of flow at some point. So basically that standing wave makes sure that all the water is replenished, even in between the rocks and every little nook and cranny.
It's not hiding. It's not hiding between the rock and the coral.
No, there's you basically eliminate most of the dead spots that way. So I distinguished 3 types of flow that you should try to achieve in a tank, which is not very easy, and you definitely need multiple power heads to achieve that. But I think it's important to have at least to realize you have different types of flow with their own function.
And you give a really good explanation on that, to be fair to you, on your channel. So if you haven't already done so, check out Leonardo's Reef on YouTube, subscribe, go and have a look on there. You don't do many of them, but they are very, I appreciate you've got a busy life.
I wish I did many more of them. No,
it's so true though, because flow is where we need education, because every other parameter, light for example, there's only one way to mount a light above your tank. Easy. That's where it goes. Flow, Jamie, where do you put them? We put them all over the place. Where's the right way? Every tank's different. There's no
Dong,
right way.
Are you going to interject here? Tell Jamie he needs to just wait a couple of weeks. I said Jamie's talking about flow. Are you just going to interject?
Go ahead. I'm taking the opinion in.
Dong is going to be putting something together regarding flow, Jamie, for us. He says in the next few weeks, something he wants to talk about. Something he's very passionate about. Flow is Dong, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Ooh.
Flow. Yeah.
Are you passionate about flow or suction? What's the
anyway?
Okay. I think
by the way, all the power head can only push, but not reverse. So flow is much better because you cannot create suction.
That's why gyros are better, because you can reverse. You can flow, reverse. That's why I like the gyro pumps, because they've got a lot more flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I use the combination of flow pumps and gyro pumps, and they all serve their purpose for sure. But I'm very happy with the gyro pumps, especially in shallow farm systems. I think they're a game changer. I'm not sure when they came out. I think like 10 years ago, roughly. But they really changed. Yeah, they really changed the game, especially for shallow tanks. It's really nice.
Actually, that's credit to Jake Adams.
Really?
Yes. But actually, the first gyro pump is Jake Adams worked with Max Beck.
Max Beck. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first. That's the first one they created like that.
Yeah. I knew Max Beck was the first one. I didn't know Jake was involved in that. But
yes,
very nice.
Actually, Jake approached Max Beck.
Oh.
Pick up Jay, so they co-developed that thing.
Yeah.
And then of course that they file a patent, but it's only pending. Only approved about 2019.
Of course, Dong would know about patents. Dong knows everything, every patent to anything that exists. Dong knows when
and
when
J-Ball kicks in,
expires,
because is Mass Spec only have a patent application.
Yeah,
patent application doesn't mean jack until you get a real patent. But it takes such a long time. Then J-Ball picked that up, and Mass Spec sent them several threatening letters. But because they only have a pending patent, they cannot do anything about it.
Yeah.
So that's why J-Ball, is already established. So, by the way, all the pump I use, all J-Balls.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
J-Ball buddies, J-Ball friends, J-Ball best friends, J-Ball friends. Elisa says, come on then, Dong, banana.
I think Elisa had a question a couple of times before. I think we missed it so far.
Yes. Where are we?
It's about the pest, the worst pest.
Oh, yes. Let's have a look. Question for Leo. Worst pest. There we go.
Only one. There's only one right answer, and it's flatworms.
Oh, really? I wouldn't have thought you'd say that. I thought you'd say something different.
Oh, really? Well, I will explain why. I think all the bugs. I wouldn't consider Aptasia and bubble algae, Valonia a coral pest, right? It's maybe a pest. It's not a coral pest. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you focus on coral pests, you have the bugs, different types of bugs. You have the Acropora eating flatworms. I think those are the most important ones, at least for Acropora. I think most of the bugs you can basically treat in tank. You can add something to your tank. You have to do it a couple of times with a 1 week interval, and you will basically get rid of everything, right? It can definitely affect your tank, your health. It can definitely has shock your tank to some extent, but at least you don't have to break down your whole system. And I think there's only one remedy to Acropora eating flatworms, and that is a complete tank breakdown. Taking out all the corals, cutting off the bases, dipping them, quarantining them, dipping them again, putting them back in quarantine, dipping them again. So basically dipping them 5 or 6 times, putting them in different quarantine tanks, because when you dip a coral, you put them back in the same quarantine. Yeah, that's not gonna, that doesn't do anything. Yeah. So you need multiple quarantines. Then you need to have your show tank or your display tank or whatever tank. You have to let it run for at least 3 to 4 weeks with not a single speck of Acropora left, because then you will starve out all the Acropora eating flatworms plus all the eggs that hatch, etc. Long story short, basically you have to start over, because no hobbyist has the resources to put some sort of quarantine line, quarantine systems, multiple systems, and dipping everything. You will definitely lose colonies and corals because of all the dipping. So I always say to people, Acropora eating flatworms is basically the biggest nightmare for a hobbyist, and I wouldn't, I don't wish it for my worst enemy to have Acropora eating flatworms. I had it as a hobbyist in the past, actually 2 times. My Formosa forest tank actually had Acropora eating flatworms at some point, and that basically also meant the end of that tank, because it was 80 by 80 centimeters of Formosa colonies, and I was basically unable to dip those.
Wow.
Yeah, so for me, the most important thing is to keep the farm pest free. And I think flatworms are definitely number one on the list of the most dangerous pest that you definitely don't want to have in your tank.
I think this is a good question for the panel here, because we've got 3 different countries represented, and also the chat, because in the UK,
Well, technically 4, Jamie, because I'm from Yorkshire. No offence.
True. I didn't want to offend you, but yeah, but that's it. So in the UK, right, things like red bugs and things which need to be treated with an antibiotic or a milbemycin, that sort of stuff, we can't really get readily available. So I would escalate red bugs and stuff to be our number one pest, because we can't get the treatments.
Yeah.
Flatworms, we can, they're a pain in the ass, but we can treat them, and we can put certain RAS and stuff in that help keep them in check, and we can do some things. We haven't got access to certain meds, so for us that's a bigger problem for us.
What's your take on fenbendazole then when it comes to flatworm?
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work in your eyes? No.
I tried. We actually have all kinds of test setups to treat for pests, and fenbendazole doesn't do anything for Acropora eating flatworms. Mine will be. Normal flatworms, they're easy to beat, like the planaria, the red ones on your window. Those are not even coral pests basically, but fenbendazole for Acropora eating flatworms, no. I know there was a little bit of a thread going on in the US with food for corals or food for fish that contains the fenbendazole, and then it treats your Acropora eating flatworms. But I tried, but I didn't see any results. I didn't try with the food. I just tried with the pure chemical. So
there's no reason that a fenbendazole should work.
No,
there's no
especially
scientific
in those
evidence.
super low concentration. It doesn't make
especially
doesn't make
when
sense.
you the food and poop out fenbendazole.
No.
You kill your soft coral pretty good though.
Yeah, or your polyps.
Are you meant to feed the fish? I was putting it on my cornflakes. That may be where I went wrong.
Well, the thing is, most of the medications for Acropora eating flatworms don't treat the flatworm. They enhance the coral's mucus production. That then kills the flatworm. So
in many cases, it's wormwood extract and a lot of iodine. That's it. And you pay a lot of euros or dollars for that. So
yeah. But I think that's the thing to understand, is they're not that a lot of those treatments don't kill flatworm. They boost the coral's reaction to flatworm.
Yeah. You can also just keep your iodine level higher, because basically that's what most of that stuff does.
Disinfect it.
But you will never get rid of them with those remedies, between quotes, because they will still be in your tank, and there's only one way to really get rid of them, and that's really breaking down the whole system.
That makes sorry, Don, I really don't want to interrupt and stuff, but part of me will always say, when I'm keeping my reef tank, this one obviously is not a reef tank yet, but it will be, and those ones are. When I'm keeping a reef tank, we're keeping the ecosystem, right? So every single healthy reef will have a level of parasite. It will have something. There'll always be that balance struck. So as long as the good stuff is winning and the bad stuff is losing, it's a success. I don't think we can ever get to the point, or expect to get to the point, where we eradicate everything. Even if you quarantine everything 4, 5, 6 times, there'll always be something that gets through. So all we have to aim for is that the coral health is as best it can be, and then the rest takes care of itself. So if there's always going to be a low-lying level of parasites, what I'm trying to say. You can't aim for perfection.
I think that Acropora eating flatworm free tank is possible without adding any new coral. Without adding any so basically you set that up system, leave it there, don't add any new stuff. And also one important thing is that I read a literature, is a survey they done on the Acropora eating flatworm on Australian from coral, Acropora. they basically collect various Acropora from the ocean, and then look at the infestation of Acropora eating flatworm. Guess what? What is the percentage? It's 100%.
Yeah.
So average, if I remember correctly, average is about 1 to 2 flatworm per branch. So if you keep buying the imported wild coral and put it in your tank, you're guaranteed to get acro eating flatworm. For example, back several years ago, when I was still getting those wild coral from wholesaler, those coral come with acro crabs. That just means that they're never being treated for anything.
Yeah, never dip the coral. Yeah.
So any dip, the acro crab should be dead. No, every quantity they come with acro crabs. So the and there's other acro eating flatworm actually kind of mutated from those mariculture colonies that become much harder to kill. So the idea is that if you try to prevent the pest to get in your tank, first you buy aquaculture coral from a reputable source. Even that after that, you dip it. Before you dip it, you chop the base off, because that's where all the egg deposit.
Yeah.
So then you can look at the stuff fresh. Then you dip it. That you probably very likely to get a pest-free frag.
Yeah.
And then you put in your tank.
Yeah.
So then if you try to feel lucky and go to the fish store and buy a colony, a wild colony, put in your tank, all your effort just get wiped out.
Yep.
But see, this is the thing, right? We can have a perfectly sterile tank if we do all of this. If you have a quarantine tank, if you only buy your corals from one source that's pest-free, all this, it's not the real world, is it? Us as reefers, what's the most enjoyable thing we can do? I love going, if I'm in a random city, I love going to an LFS and seeing what they're selling, and I might buy something because it's fun and I'm seeing something I like. Like my kids can never break their leg by keeping in the house all the time, but they want to go and climb trees and they want to go and jump off stuff. And that's the fun part, isn't it? You take a bit of risk and you accept it. You accept the risk that you put yourself in front of.
I think for us,
Sorry. I think that what Jamie said is absolutely right. So we cannot exclude all the microorganisms from the reef tank, but we can exclude certain large pests as a parasite from the reef tank. For example, if you say we want to exclude certain harmful bacteria, absolutely impossible to do. Actually, right now that we rarely see redbug. I haven't seen redbug for a long time, because with all this dipping protocol, we basically eradicated some of that. So that means that we successfully eradicated the redbug. But then Acropora eating flatworm is the next in line. But in terms of bacteria or other parasite, maybe a little feather duster, whatever, those kind of things, of course we cannot exclude them. So Jamie, you have a great point, is that it's an ecosystem. There's tons of living things in there that we don't know, even though we don't even know they exist in there most of the time. But for some of the parasite pests, that is pretty large, pretty visible, and that is something that we can do something about it.
Jamie, I do agree with you. As a hobbyist, you have to accept a certain level of, it's not going to be perfect, right? And need to be enjoyable, and you shouldn't worry about every frag that you put in, for sure. I think as a farmer with having a whole, literally a building full of Acropora, it is a different story, and I think we should try to achieve total pest-free corals. It will be basically the same as me being a chicken farmer and having 20,000 chickens, and I just want them to be disease-free all the time. Otherwise, it's going to be out. It's going to get out of control really, really fast. And I think if we have flatworms in the tank, it gets out of control really fast. And then basically I have to start over, and it's just not something I can risk.
Of course,
So-
as a seller, I get that 100%.
Yeah,
Like your
yeah.
facility has to be, completely a biosecure zone as best you can
Yeah.
make it. But even say that, all the best efforts you make and what you put in place as a purchaser, as a hobbyist, I still accept a level of
Yeah.
risk to buy from anyone.
Yes.
Because it's you can't guarantee livestock. No matter what you say, you can't guarantee livestock.
Yeah.
So I'll always accept that. And what I'm trying to say is I just don't want to take the fun out of the hobby that we all should be so sterile and all should be so like, we have to QT everything.
Well, the other thing as well
accept
is it can put people off. I mean, the point here, like John
yes.
says, all joking aside, don't keep acros.
Well, other corals also come with a lot of pests. So.
Exactly. And I think that is part and parcel of the hobby to an extent.
I actually saw some people in the comments having good results with fenbendazole flakes.
Yeah.
So I would definitely try to get in contact with them because I'm definitely curious about their experiences.
Well,
because I'm not saying
you're looking at somebody that's done it.
All right.
I brought it back from my America trip, which I was fortunate enough to meet Elisa in person when I went to Orlando with Drippy at Reef Palooza early in the year. And I brought some of the food back that they use at ACI. That Chris Mecklin uses. And,
I think we definitely should take every at least possible solution to this.
I'd got a suspicion in my display tank with flatworm. I'd not seen it. I was got suspicion of a bite marks with one coral. Because the other thing, I get what you're saying about dipping, and it's right to remove the coral, dip it, treat it. But it's a little bit difficult when it's spaced out, it's encrusted, it's settled. It's not as easy to just rip it out. You have to be. It's tough love. You have to genuinely, don't you? And then you've got the rot work. Can you access it? Are you then going to knock other stuff off? And I think again, that in itself can prevent, or should I say, make people a little bit more reluctant to do what you say about dipping.
I'm just very curious to try it out in a controlled environment in just some setups that are 100% controlled. And
I used it for about 6 months. I didn't have a lot. I used it 6 months. I got told to use a pinch, and it got added to fish food, obviously because fish digest it. And I've had, touch wood, no issues with my. I
just want to see it in a totally controlled environment.
I'm not saying it works. I'm just saying I don't feel it. I can't say it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Reading the comments.
Well, it's definitely worth a further investigation. I'm very skeptical for sure, but because it's the 101th remedy that has been out for Acropora eating flatworms, but maybe this one works. I don't know. So if people say it actually works, I'm definitely not saying I don't believe them, but I'm very interested in their experiences for sure, so I can follow up on them.
Definitely. And you might
do something like what I'm doing. So the tank here, none of the coral is screwed down.
Yeah,
everyone just sitting there because I need to take them out to frag them to generate frags.
Yeah, true.
So then I can take them out individually and dip individual coral and put them back.
Except for our
is also sitting.
Yeah, except for the mother or for the show tank, everything in our place is also on tiles and everything. It's very easy to take out, to frag and put back. So
I've got 2 more questions for you, Leo, before we wrap up. I'm conscious we're well over the 2-hour mark. Thanks ever so much for your patience. I just had to nip to a toilet break, so I do apologise. That's where I disappeared to know that. Right, what other one for you? Redundancy. What's the plan B when things go south at Leonardo's Reef? Do you have one? Just out of curiosity.
We are very well insured, first of all. I think we have enough financial buffers to start over if we have to. And of course, I put in a lot of redundancy when it comes to power outages, equipment failures. We have multiple systems running. So I think our redundancy is up to par. But, if you have a 3-day power outage, what are you going to do, right? So in that case, I think the only thing is insurance, if you ever get paid out. But in the worst case, I think the thing you can lose all your corals, you can lose your whole collection that we build up the collection in 8-9 years. So you can definitely lose all that, but all the experiences that you have, and I think that's in the end the most valuable. So you can always start over. It will definitely take a lot of time and effort again, but I think the experience is worth the most, and you will never lose that. So I think you can do whatever you can do when it comes to redundancy, but if things really go south, you always have something to fall back on, and that's all the experience that you have with coral farming. So,
do you ever lean on fellow reefers? You mentioned obviously Pedro earlier, who's a customer of yours. Do you ever lean on customers of yours to say, we've had an issue with this coral? Do you have? Can we purchase it back from you? Or do you ever, yeah, okay.
We definitely had corals that we lost in the past when we were so stupid to have one colony, for instance. So we definitely got corals back from customers of ours to add them back to the collection. So I also see giving corals away or selling corals to hobbyists or friends or people that I know locally. It's also part of that redundancy to never lose your full collection, for sure. So whenever I have a piece that I definitely don't want to lose, I make sure I have at least 3 or 4 people close that knows how to take care of acros and can keep it for me if things go really wrong. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. One of the, go on, Jamie. Looks like you were going to say something there. You've gone quiet. Oh, he's muted himself. No, you're still mute. You're still muted. Go. You can talk. You're good.
Can I talk now?
Yes. You can. Yes. Your turn.
Just to jump on what Leonardo was saying there, I say when I buy myself a nice coral, like let's say a really expensive acro or a nice tenuous or something, and it's usually a little tiny frag, I will plant it out, and as soon as that grows sufficiently, rather than be happy with it, the first thing I will do is break it in half and give it to a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Just because I want that redundancy. Now I'm fortunate enough to have 2 separate systems. I've got this one obviously behind me and 2 over here. I've already started to break off bits of my mother colonies and keep them. And what I'm going to put in there, I'm going to have over there. Just because if one system goes south or something happens, I've got it backed up. But what Tom was saying there is about what the Reefers Network is about, especially in the UK, is we try and spread our corals about. So if you've got a nice colony of something that's really quite special to you, the best way to keep that special to you and keep it unique is to give it to people, because you might lose yours, and you might want a bit back one day. And it's not about giving people free coral and not trying to get money back for it. That completely ruins the whole ethos of what the network is all about. The whole network is about giving and spreading your coral around, because you might want it back one day. You might have a disaster.
Spreading some coral joy, some coral
love. Absolutely. And also, when someone gives you a coral, it's almost like it's a lovely experience, because you're not just getting a free coral that looks nice in your tank. You're also keeping a bit of coral that someone else might lose, and you might have to give some back. And it's
one of the things that we see in the UK, especially when it comes to Acropora, is everything is done on. Again, just from my experience, everything's done on fashions. Corals have a fashion. This cycle every few years. It's Instagram. It's marketing with the M word again. We talk about what's the latest. People talk about this on podcasts, on YouTube, and whatever. About what the latest sort of fad or craze is. And unfortunately, because people follow those crazes and may not be able to retain or carry on growing the phases of past, i.e. the corals of 5, 10, 15 years ago, those corals are no longer imported because they're not classed as interesting, or there's not an appetite for them. So you tend to see some of the all-time, like, sort of, easier to keep all-time greats just disappear, when really we should be retaining those. And like Jamie's rightly saying, for me at the minute, I'm collecting in my garage. I'm not going for the stuff that you've got, Leo, the amazing, fancy, amazing neon light
We have both.
For the,
we
you
have,
know what I'm saying though? I'm looking for the stuff that really, for me, is the OG of some of the SPS in the UK that we don't get. So yeah, Jamie's right. By sharing that, you've got access to it, and by doing, the more you do that, and I know obviously the UK is a drop in the ocean compared to the US and to Holland market, but it just keeps, for us, it keeps the hobby alive, keeps it interesting. People want choice, don't they? They want variety. People want to be able to choose from 50 corals, not from 5. Dong, am I boring you already?
Yeah.
Who's this we've got? Who's this we've got on screen?
Because she wants food. She was smelling, circling me.
What's her name?
Pie. It meant for cutie pie. That's my daughter named her. Cutie pie. Pie.
Right.
You can be pumpkin pie too.
Right. There is one last question, Leo, I'm going to throw at you. And I've actually titled this Tracers ... Gaza's Reef. Because if he's still watching, every time we have a guest on, he wants to know what the guest's preferences, or should I say importance of, preference of importance of trace elements are. So yeah,
Okay.
what do you think
It's
they are to
easy.
you?
Iodine, number one.
Okay.
It's not. I don't know. I think it's considered a trace.
Yeah, it is a trace. Yeah.
Yeah, I think iodine is the most important. If I have to choose one, I think that one is definitely one to add to your tank at all times.
Okay.
So that's the answer.
Any others? Can you give us a second or a third after iodine?
I think after iodine it becomes a little bit harder.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have a really
Well, you talked about the other day about how important you thought zinc was.
Yeah, I think zinc is an important one for sure for overall coral health. And maybe if I do have to do a top 3, I would say iodine, zinc, and fluorine. I think that.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think
I
after iodine, the rest is not so important. Not compared to iodine.
So if we're talking real traces, I know I said all earlier about most of it is not really worth measuring and stuff, but anecdotally, the best way to measure your tank is not by ICP, is by what you see, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was given some chromium additions, and since adding chromium on a regular basis, I would probably say that my highlights Acropora looks a lot more green than it used to.
Yeah.
And I mean considerably more green than it used to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only time I've ever dosed a trace and noticed a difference. And I've dosed a few of them over the time, which I've stopped now because it was like 20 quid a bottle for no tangible difference. But chromium is the only one I've seen a change in.
Yeah.
So I'll throw it out there.
Look at Dong's face. Come on, Dong, what are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, because I did look into chromium because it has been such a lot of attention has been paid to that. But I found absolutely none beneficial effect of chromium from any scientific literature. Only thing show up, chromium is just a poison.
Don't care about scientific literature. I care about this. I just care about this.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. When a coral is stressed out, it may display brighter color. The coral color can be a stress signal as well. For example, that when a Acropora is stressed out, I have one of them that when it's stressed out, is super bright. It's fluorescent yellow. When it's healthy, it's actually a yellow and red combo. There's because I hear you, because other people say the same thing about chromium. But then I dig into the scientific literature, there's absolutely no reference of any beneficial effect whatsoever being reported. It's only, actually chromium is classified as an environmental toxin. It's something that you should absolutely get rid of.
I don't want to open up the whole debate about traces and stuff, but my thing is always to try and get close to natural seawater levels. I know we've spoken in the past about you could do better than natural levels, but if I'm pitching for natural, that's what I tend to go for. And chromium does feature as quite a prevalent trace element in natural seawater. So that's why I give it a little bit of importance, and I've tried dosing it.
Yeah, that is what I found, that people do pay attention to chromium, is to how to get rid of it and how damaging it is to coral and sea life. That is all the research is about chromium.
Yeah, but you're also talking to someone that doses nitrate and phosphate, so that's probably.
But nitrate and phosphate is literally proven that is beneficial, though. There is a laboratory study about phosphate. That basically is a peer-reviewed scientific paper. They have 3 set up with these 3 different zero phosphate and the middle and high level phosphate. It demonstrated the coral grow faster, linear to the phosphate level. So nitrate has also been proven to be essential nutrition. So, but chromium.
I was just making the point of buying actual nitrate and buying phosphate is just the same as buying chromium to dose, right?
But chromium is a little bit more difficult for me to swallow chromium, because that it just doesn't show up in anything that's showing any beneficial. But well, with that said, is that the coral, when they stress out, they do this display. They could display a more vibrant color. Yeah, because again, certain zoanthus get killed off.
Going back to the reef keeping thing, my glass box, I want it to look pretty, so don't stress the fuck out and make it look nice.
But back to the same thing is that it's a hobby. So I think that if you dose chromium and show some beneficial, you like the color, it probably is not that not bad at all, because it's a hobby. Its color is everything basically.
Yeah,
but I just for farming coral, I just don't see the benefit of chromium to be.
No, not from a farm point of view. It's purely anecdotal. I think the question was, what traces do you think make a difference? And that's the only one I've tangibly seen a difference from. So, I'm not. The difficult thing is as well is if you say what works in your system, it doesn't work in no one else's, because your system is so specific and so balanced. Like,
I think there's a placebo with it as well. By pouring something in, it feels like you're doing something good to your tank.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, I've just spent $19.99. It's going to do something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It looks a bit greener to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Then that works because it's a hobby.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Right, gentlemen, we're well over the 2.5 hour mark. Leonardo looks like he really needs to go to bed.
No, not yet. It's Friday night, so it's fine.
He's tired. Right, we'll wrap us up there. Leo, thanks ever so much for coming on again, as always.
Thank you too.
You always have a seat on this panel. Thanks for coming on the show. I hope those 60, 70 and at 1.80 odd of you that have tuned in this Friday evening / afternoon, wherever you are around the globe, have enjoyed it for sure. Dong, you definitely bring something to this channel. Thanks ever so much. Don't show what it is just yet. Definitely a banana, a cat, maybe a dog, whatever else in the future. Yes, thanks ever so much for participating, as always, on a Friday night. Jamie, happy Friday to you, man.
Happy
Have
Friday.
a good weekend. Looking forward to seeing you a couple of weeks down at Reefing Audience with at Coral Freaks at AAC. Looking forward to that.
Absolutely. And there is still time for Dong and Leo to book a ticket to come over. So
yes, of course there is. Yes, you need to go over to see the UK Reef Sea for sure.
Yeah, when is it exactly? Which date?
31st, the 1st of November, Saturday 1st.
I have a show one week after that in Netherlands. So
yeah. Whoa, are you trying to say we're not as important? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I have to.
Right, okay.
I understand.
I was going to invite you back. I was going to invite you back on for our Christmas Big Fat Reefing Quiz of the Year, guests versus guests. I might have to look. I might have to look for other guests now.
I can bring a banana as well if you want to.
Listen, gentlemen, thank you ever so much. And again, as I've said to those of you that have tuned in this Friday night, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support as always. If you haven't already, please give us a subscribe. after the show. We love you all. Have a cracking weekend. We will see you all next week. The show we're back, and we will be saying hello to Terrell and Lindsay, the amazing team from Putang Reefs for sure. Be great to catch up with that amazing duo to have a look at their home farm over in the States. But other than that, have a nice weekend. See you all next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.